All right, let some people trickle in before we get going. I'm starting a little bit early. I figured um, there are a few people who have mentioned that they want to come, but then they also go to bed early. So if we if I do this now, get all the out of the way, then by the time everybody comes through, it'll be around about 10, and then get to the meat of it all. I think this is it, right? It's like starting 7 minutes early is just setting the table. It's like there are people who want to make it to the live, but then they can't. Um, they they're like the types who arrive, eat, and go. So set the table, then they can come, eat, and go. I recognize that 10 p.m. is like I'm still amazed people turn up at 10 p.m. and I'm still amazed at people staying past 2, 3, 4 o'clock sometimes in the morning. That last listing live thing that we did, my gosh, I think we went to like 4:30 or something. And Grumpy Granny, Michelle, Pia, hello. Yeah, like that last live that they went on to about 4:30 in the morning. We still had like 3 people at the end of it, which was pretty amazing. So at some point, this is just me pushing the envelope and why my wife says I'm on the spectrum. Um, I reckon there needs to be some sort of like 10-hour listing live challenge where we start at like 6 and end at 4 a.m. and we just do. Hey Jeff, what's up? Yeah, so 10-hour listing live challenge, where we just pop something that at the 10-hour mark. I'll do the full 10 hours, obviously. If you guys want to do the full 10 hours, you're more than welcome to. Of course, toilet breaks, go eat food. Naps? Should we pass on naps? Or is it going to be like a grind crunch 10-hour listing live? Who knows? Sorting inventory will count. I reckon sorting inventory counts. So sorting inventory, taking photos, doing listings for 10 hours straight. I reckon that will be a pretty awesome thing to do. Retro Ranger. Early early days. CL Furlong coming here just to support because I know, my friend, that you are very much in bed right now. Probably already brush your teeth. It's funny, Michelle. Like it's funny, Michelle. With I was talking to Chris about this, and Chris was like, "I think we're all a bit odd. I think the reason why we all like reselling is because there are no, my interpretation, there are no barriers, there are no boxes. It's just do whatever, figure out if you can make money, and if you can make money by applying the various tools, of which promoted listings is one of them, then go do you and be odd. And don't have to do odd you in a workplace with a bunch of people who don't like to be odd, or at least people who don't give themselves permission to be odd. Yeah, reselling is like really, really freeing. Matilda, hello. What's new? Share some good news with me in the chat. What's been the best thing that's happened in the last since Monday? Let's go with Monday. Last 2 days. I've got coffee today, but I've got whiskey in that. The first time I learned about whiskey and coffee, I remember going to order. I used to like Irish cream or like Irish cream syrup in my coffee, and I went to a cafe that was a bit more upmarket, and I said I like some Irish cream coffee, and then this came, and my life's been changed since. So yes, this is whiskey and coffee, and I'm very happy. Hmm. Whew. Amarula. What is Amarula? Googling this. Amarula. Interesting. Sweetish. I will try this. What's up, Fixie? I like, this whole ADHD thing. I like that with reselling that there is no I like that there's no template. It's so refreshing. It's like it's so gracious towards people like us who don't have, who don't know how to stay in a lane. I mean, of course, eventually when we scale up and we start to hire staff and we have processes and procedures, like we do need to be disciplined and structured to some extent. But the fact that there's a really awesome period of learning that is quite free, almost Montessori like, like it's like we're little toddlers just censoring everything to kind of figure this whole thing out. It's so much hard. Like I think that's why like people like us, when we first get jobs where it's like you do one thing and you go, but I kind of want to touch the inventory, but your job is just to be on the computer, and you just don't do a good job because you would really help if you could just touch the bloody inventory. But no, the boss says, nope, the inventory is in the warehouse, you're in the office, and then it just frustrates you, and you're like, and it just feels like there's this tension of I don't quite. So I love reselling. It lets you do everything, and maybe that's why we also do. That's why, like, I would love to know actually in the comments how many of you guys have done hospitality before, because I feel like hospitality for me is the closest thing to reselling in terms of touching everything. I remember I did like the waitering, I did like some food prep, I did like barista, I did front of house, back of house. Like I feel like hospitality was probably, I would probably explain why that was my go-to like side job whilst I was working at the bank. Whenever I needed cash, I wanted to buy a new car, I just worked nights at a restaurant because I think that, and it was my happy place, like a happy escape place, a place to be free. Hey, Grumpy Granny, see? There we go. Later, CL. Love ya. Mwah. This is a Blu-ray. Found it today for $5. Wow, dude, that's amazing. I remembered for me, my moment in the restaurant where I realized that I belonged there was Sweeney Todd. The movie came out, the one with Johnny Depp, and I was polishing some knives, but it was like at a part, like on a counter that was facing the restaurant, and then I just started breaking out into song. I held up a knife and went, "These are my friends, see how they glisten." And then the restaurant just kind of looked at me like, he's having fun. And then the mood kind of just changed in the whole restaurant. And I think, yeah, that for me was, I want to come here and stay here and just enjoy being here. So hospitality. Rare cards for a meal. Oh, rare cards for a meal. I would love to sell anything collectible for a meal. I don't think I'll ever get the chance. But at the same time, in my head, it's all relative. Like, I'm very curious to know if somebody knows what made that card, $1 million card. Hey, Megan and Dave, are you gonna keep me company to 2 o'clock again? I'm planning on listing live again after this chat. So it's like we'll do the promoter listing thing, and then those who want to go to bed can go to bed, and then I'll just do some listing, just keep the live running, or just do a new live. So, Angela, you made it. That's true, Michelle. Don't believe everything you read. Like, the number of times like someone sells something and then all these news people start following. Oh, hi Megan. Bye Megan. Love you. Yeah, the time someone will sell something and then a media outlet catches wind of it and then starts talking about it like it's a thing for the whole category. Pyrex, right? Like the whole Pyrex thing. Every year, I kid you not, every year around Christmas time or Thanksgiving, there's like an article that literally uses this. I swear it's the same photo from the previous articles that came out the years before, and as if it's new news. And everybody else somehow feels it's new news, except we are like in the reseller on the Facebook groups in reseller land. We're like, again, but then we'll get approached by some random at a Christmas dinner who goes, "Oh my gosh, do you sell Pyrex?" So we're like, and if any of you sell Pyrex and actually do this like for real, it must really piss you off because like someone will come to your house and just go, "Oh, do you make millions?" And then you tell them to look at your car and go, "I drive a Camry. What do you think?" Yeah, Black Diamond VHS. I know you guys don't do this, but I feel really bad for all the newbies who don't know how to ask questions and then they get blasted with like the Black VHS, Beanie Babies, Pyrex. What else? Dick-shaped Cheetos. I don't know. Like just randoms, and then they feel so disheartened, and I almost feel like giving them a hug. But this is the online world, right? You can't just go give someone a hug or pull them aside. And I also feel like whenever a new person asks like a question and then they get blasted with all this nonsense, I've tried reaching out to the poster and be like, hey, just thought I'd help you to work through this. And someone don't even reply because I feel like that's the expectation, or maybe that's the caution of the online world. Like, if someone messages you out of the blue, you just go, I'm not gonna reply you. So it makes helping quite tricky, I feel. Yeah. So only Fixie has good news. Well, I have really good news. I went to an op shop, and they had like, I'm gonna do a video of this anyways, but essentially they had toy cars, and then they brought up more toy cars because they saw that I was like a little kid in a grown ass body, and then it was just $1 a piece, and I'm going through them, and with each tub, the stuff became minter and vintager. So we're talking like at the start, it was dollar Hot Wheels cars that would sell for $10 to $20. The next top, it was Hot Wheels cars that were rarer that would go for $30, $40. And then by the last top, it was like heavy vintage Super Kings Matchbox cars that would go for like $100 to, there's one that's like a die cast dump truck that was a $200 dump truck. Like the thing is heavy, like, 2 blocks of butter kind of heavy. And yeah, I was amazed. So I came back with essentially what was 10 kilos worth of die cast cars for $169 that would probably fit for about 2 to 2.5, depending on how long I'm willing to wait. So that's my good story of the day. Good story of the week. I always get very excited when I see like old stuff where the stickers are all still like intact. For me, it's like I don't if the stickers are still intact, generally everything else is still like mint glossy plastic, metal still not corroded. And even that feeling of like when you touch an old toy and then it doesn't feel metallic and you go, huh, and it's still cold to the touch. Oh, makes my day. Michelle, this was Roville, believe it or not. Like it was Stud Park. And I don't go to this op shop just because it's one of those, it's like bigger, there's generally a lot of turnover. But to me, I think the key was when you go to an op shop and you meet somebody nice, and I think they rotate op shops as well. So like if you meet somebody nice, you can essentially, by virtue of being friendly, they just go, yeah, here, have more. Almost like when you go to someone's house for a meal and they just keep serving you food and want you to eat until you explode, like that. So that was the experience. It wasn't like I was hunting. It wasn't like I was, yeah. So that was a pretty cool experience. What are the op shops like in your area, down where you are? Because I've been down your way randomly, and I feel like reception cuts off at different points, and I just find like navigating the windy roads just a bit tricky. Go halves, sure. I feel like at some point, if resellers scale up, it will be a case of several resellers coming together and going, I major in this category. Here's an idea. Let's say if I major in toy cars and you major in like clothing, but you happen to sell toy cars, and then you have some electronics that someone else majors in, and then essentially you go, we all sell in 3 categories. Let's just all focus on selling the category that we actually love selling in, and then you share the cost of the overhead, and then you just run it out of a massive warehouse that's in between all 3 of you. Just an idea. I feel like that would be a really cool thing because, like, the biggest challenge I feel with it as a reseller is when you want to grow your business, sometimes you get into categories that literally tap out, and you go, oh, every time I like there are some categories I've tried where I know that I cannot list anymore. If I list more, the price will go down, and then I do it, and the price goes down, and I'm like, yeah, I'm right. And so then you go, okay, I can't. This whole 6-figure dream that I had from this category clearly isn't there, and I'll have to account for competition coming in. So therefore, what's a new category and a new category and a new category that I can get into. But then as we discover categories, we all will relate to this. We all don't love every category the same. We have favorite children. And so it would be nice to be like, I want to look after this favorite child, and every one of your not favorite children that will be my favorite child. And then we just all work together, work out of the same place, and just fulfill it all the same way, and which will be pretty efficient, I guess. Yes, Michelle, we should totally get a warehouse, you, me, and Chris. It would actually, I think it would actually be in between as well for all of us. So, and from my understanding, and I think from thinking about where the map is, there are actually warehouses. There actually are warehouse complexes between the three of us. Hey, welcome, Media Map Man. What are we talking about? We're talking about kids now, are we? Good question. Old Hot Wheels collectors don't. Essentially there's the metal on metal build, and then there's like the metal on plastic build. So there's a point where the Hot Wheels go from being really heavy to the touch to being quite flimsy and light, and so then that's kind of, I guess, old and new. But most people tend to collect it based on the casting that they like. So if you're someone who likes like a Beetle, you'll just collect every Beetle you can find. And then of course, if you're a collector of Beetles and you're also like very particular about the scale, then you only collect the ones of a particular scale, which means that you'll ignore all the brands that have the scales a little bit off. Yeah, so old's different for different people. Clearly, old for you would be something that would be just the older heavy stuff if you're older. Whereas someone like my kid, old just means stuff that was around before he was born, but I was still a kid, kind of thing. Yeah, it's interesting, which is why I love reselling so much, because you can't put labels on things, and people buy things for a whole variety of reasons, which I think will definitely factor into this conversation about promoted listings. Oh, mate, the Scott, welcome. Yeah, the Tomica stuff is interesting because the Tomica stuff is like it's really skill accurate, and the thing that people don't appreciate about that is there are cars that have what's like, when you close a door and when the door meets the body, the grooves are very accurate. So it's like some cars where it's flush, they try and make it flush, and some cars where it's not flush, yeah, I can actually see the grooves. So you almost get you don't just get the smooth side of a car, you get the smooth side and the bumps. For those of you guys who don't care about toy cars, I'm so sorry we're geeking out here. We'll try and get back on track. Diary of a Flipper, how are ya? Oh, okay, Michelle. Old Tonka is interesting. Old Tonka, it really comes down to the condition of the metal. So for example, I can pick up like an old Tonka like bulldozer, right, that a kid has driven through like multiple sand pits, and it just won't sell. It will sell for like $20, but it's heavy. It's like a solid 5 kilo bulldozer that's about this big. Whereas if the metal is still, very much, it feels like it's freshly painted, the rubber still feels soft, on the tracks, that stuff goes for like $99, and someone in the States will pay $99 for me to ship it there. So it really comes down to whether it's been driven through play or not. So in that sense, it's actually quite straightforward. The other thing with Tonka is that a lot of the moving parts are metal as well, which means that if it's been played with a lot, the hydraulics start to rust, and then you've got micro fractures in them. So depending on how good you are in inspecting the moving parts, you could be opening up yourself to an INET if you send something overseas or send something to someone else, and then when they start playing with it and it snaps, and it's like, yeah, it's not supposed to snap because these toys are actually meant to be really hardy. The other thing is a lot of the other moving parts would be string-based moving parts. So you're checking for like that the string, the ropes haven't frayed, that the ropes are original instead of being replaced. You're checking for micro fractures in the plastic because it's really hard plastic, which means that if there's a micro fracture in the plastic, a little bit of play will make the crack go pop, and then it will just, it's not like, it won't be like a soft crack, but like a really hard pop crack, in which case then the whole window will just come out. So there's that consideration with old Tonka as well, which means really what it comes down to is if it's been played with, I just sell it as if it's been played with. I don't try and get old Tonka dollars for played with stuff. But if it hasn't been played with and there are no moving parts, I expect old Tonka dollars. And if I wait about 6 months to 12 months, I will get old Tonka dollars because the market is a willing to pay market, but it's not a very big willing to pay market. I'll take a breath. No worries. If we list consistently, right, are we better off listing exactly the same number per day? Do you think we would be detrimental to list 35 one day, 20 the next? The algorithm expects you to be consistent. What that looks like really depends on you. So, for example, if you're listing, if you're doing like once a week, 100 listings, then you don't list for the rest of the week, versus if you list 20 a week, 20 a day, every single day, the argument is that 20 a day is better because the viewers on the site get something new. So that's I think the logic behind the consistency. It's nothing to do with the algorithm favoring you. The algorithm isn't a deity that chooses who to favor. It doesn't work that way. But also the biggest variable that we must always remember is that there is competition doing stuff as well. So the best way for you to track your sales will be like this. If you sell the same item as a competitor and you save their searches and you notice that when they list 5, you list 5, and you notice you're getting same amount of sales, then you know, okay, that checks out. If they list 5 a day and then they don't list for another day, but you list 5 a day every single day and you notice you're getting more sales, then that checks out as well. The competition affecting the mix in the search for when buyers are searching on a daily basis, I think that has more to do with whether you get sales or not. Because really, if you're not putting your hat in the ring for a search, you're not getting a chance to play. And of course, if something is newly listed and yours is yesterday listed, the newly listed will turn up first if it's sorted that way. But once again, everybody can sort by price. So for those buyers who sort by price, whether you list every single day or once a week, your listing, if it's the cheapest, will still go up on top. eBay is not going to take that listing away just because you didn't list regularly. I hope that helps, Pia. I think the fixation on listing really comes down to people thinking that if they list regularly, the god of algos will give them sales. It doesn't work that way. So therefore, the balance really comes down to what can I do consistently along with everything else in my business so that I don't find myself in a place where suddenly I don't like looking at my warehouse because it's so messy. I've left it like just to go to shambles. And then I spend a whole week doing that. And then as a result of having to fix stuff that is backlogged, I ignore listing for a week and then sales goes down. So if you're consistently doing everything, consistently tidying, consistently taking photos, consistently listing, consistently fulfilling, consistently replying to messages, that should see you gradually increase your sales anyways. I hope that helps. That's what most of us will do. Like most of us who have gotten where we are have all just done that. We've all just kind of added as we go, source as we go, and then eventually we find ourselves doing, 5 to 6 figures in a particular category. Because it's the consistency that helps us to outcompete the inconsistent people. Because on eBay, there are actually a lot of sellers who don't list regularly. I save searches of all my competitors, well, most of the ones that I think are legitimate. And I even noticed the ones who are legitimate, who do several thousand a month in sales of a particular category, they don't list regularly. So really, like, I have yet to find somebody who operates out of a home who actually puts out a standard like 5 or 10 listings every single day. It's actually quite rare to find. And that kind of tells you that if you just do that, you are already ahead of them. Of course, subject to the variety of your stock being attractive, though the pricing being competitive, your service being, top, things like that. Yep, Granny says prefers daily listing numbers. Yep. Michelle says no magic number. True, no magic number. Buyer refunded yesterday. Da, 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 da. Ooh, interesting. Had a buyer refunded yesterday for an item sold in February that was still in Brazil customs. eBay didn't contact me, gave the buyer 150 back. If it's a waiting collection, it shouldn't be out of your pocket because I just had one from Germany where it was a waiting collection. The person opened up a case because it was tracked. eBay refunded them, but didn't actually take it out of my pocket. So it would be worth clarifying with them, especially if it's already gotten there, but they haven't picked it up. But I suppose if it's stuck in customs but hasn't been cleared for collection or hasn't been delivered, then Australia Post should cover you if it's insured up to that amount. Yeah, that checks out. So yeah, if it's pending collection or delivered, eBay tends to refund them. You get to keep the money. But if it's not at that point and it's still kind of like floating around in customs, then eBay will refund them. You don't get it from eBay. You go to Australia Post. Australia Post will try and find the item. 30 business days later, they may tell you that it's due for a refund, or they may tell you it's on the way back to you and then update the tracking and then you get the item back. I did the exercise, and if I list the same amount in the month but random rather than same day each month says drop, yeah, that's true. Because the fact is, if eBay has a chance to put new listings up instead of old listings, they'll put new listings up, and that makes sense. So you really need to make the case for why you should be visible. I think that's really, it's like I think of listing as showing up to work, and I feel like it would be an interesting test to do 10 listings on a Monday, and that's it. And then after the next week on a Tuesday, and then on a Wednesday, and then on a Thursday. So that it's not like every Monday. And then you do one listing every single day and see if that even that makes a difference or not. Because a lot of times sellers, I think the hard thing with eBay to grapple with is the fact that it's such a big platform. So it's hard to imagine my little bit of effort will affect the outcome. But at the same time, whilst it's a large platform, we merely compete within search. So therefore, if your items are items that are searched in very narrow searches, your little X could actually make a big difference in that search. Oh, you guys are ruthless. You guys are ruthless in a good way. Like I just came from Drew's thing, Drew's live where he was taking photos and chatting with us, and the chats were a lot more succinct. You guys are giving me paragraphs to catch up on. not that it's a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's better than silence, and it's better than short sentences. So I'm going to work through them. Increasing traffic once I get the amount of listings of eBay's used to me doing each day. Yep, better since promoted listings is off. Ooh, interesting, Michelle. Do tell in a moment when we talk about promoted listings. Grumpy Granny, this is hilarious. I had a friend of mine whose parents changed the locks while he was out because he told him to like just piss off. He's gonna come back whenever, and then when he came back, he couldn't open the door, so he had to sleep in the car overnight. Oh yeah, Dave, definitely always return because it doesn't make sense to dispose of the item unless it's one of those items where once it comes back to you, it's not worth keeping. Like, I don't know, seeds, stuff that has expiry dates, stuff that you wouldn't be bothered processing and reselling. But I think yeah, for most of the stuff that we sell, like books, toys, collectibles, clothing, we would want it back and just have another go. Yeah. All right, let's talk promoted listings. Let's talk promoted listings. If everyone is done having a nice chat, let's do promoted listings. So let's start with who actually, if you can type like one or two, because I learned that from Drew's live before. One if you do promoted listings, two if you don't. I'll throw my hat in the ring. I do them as well. One and two. One. Automated cap at 5. Yep. So most people have it at 1, some have a 2. For those of you who do the, how many of you, okay, so for those of you who do the 2, or don't do promote as well. Hey Wendy, yeah, for those of you who don't promote, so like Dave, Michelle, and Wendy, can you tell us why you don't do promoted listings? I for one, while you guys type, I'll tell you why. I for one, because my categories are so niche, my decision to do promoted listings has to do with the fact that my competitors also do promoted listings, and the pricing differences between the items, because I sell items that are like $10 to $20. We're talking like between 50 cents to $1 in pricing difference before postage. So usually what happens for me is my pricing is around that 50 cents to $1 in difference from my competitors. But it's the fact that my postage is $1 cheaper just because I don't raise my postage prices with each hike, that when they sort by lowest, the whole search changes in my favor. So until that point, it's still very much first to view, and the difference is not worth sorting. The promoted listing one tends to win. So that's why for me, I do it because my competitors do it, and it's just more to mix up that the way the best match presents. If my competition didn't do it, I probably wouldn't either, because a lot of my items are items that people search for, and the price is actually quite elastic if there is no competition. For example, something like this, right, is always going to have a competitor because it's one of those easy to find items. They're in every Kmart, not like selected Kmarts, literally every Kmart, which means at any point in time there's like 10 to 50 of them listed, and the price, there'll be some idiot who expects $99 for it when really it's $40 to $60 on a good day. So then in that situation, it's like it's like you have to promote listings, or you just price it as at the lowest, which I think Paul Laurie, if he's in this chat, he did mention that he found that he gets better sales by sending offers and just not promoting at all, which is another way. So I guess for me, I do it because my competition does it. That's literally the only reason I do it. Sup, Adam? I do good sales without promotion. The books I have are either rare or low print or very popular and easy to sell. Yeah, so that's I guess what I'm alluding to as well. It's that whole buyers search and they already want the item, and when they get to that search, there isn't anything else. They're not searching generally, and they're not really wanting to be, I think, and also because they search for such a specific item, the algorithm isn't trying to suggest anything else. And even if the algorithm suggests a bunch of other books to consider, the buyer's like, I don't care. I'm not really window shopping, I'm item shopping, literally. Can you expand on that a bit, Michelle? Like when you say, like, you got is it general store, but everything within the general store is item shopping as opposed to general shopping? Grumpy Granny, I couldn't get away with promoting a lot of my rare books, but it's easier for my listing process. So it's like a lazy 2% at the bottom. It's gonna help either way, kind of that kind of approach. I did have that for some of my other shops as well. I'll show you guys some screenshots of my traffic in a bit. But yeah, it's like the whole having to choose by the item, because I guess if your store is already narrowed down to the category that all your items are kind of a certain flavor, then I guess promoting the store as a whole doesn't really impact it too much. It doesn't feel as random. Nike PDD. I'm gonna call you PDD now because that sounds cool. For rare items that are hard to find, I don't think they need promoting. Very true. Very true. How many of you guys who do promoted listings actually do it because you're kind of afraid of the not doing. Like if you don't do it, you don't want to wake up to like traffic doing this. How many of you guys actually are in that bucket of like, I've never tested no promoted listings, but I kind of don't ever want to experience a day with no potentials, with potentially no sales either. I will promote things that are common. I spent a lot of on promotions last month and not sure if I would have sold them anyways. Okay. I think with promoted listings, right? The way that I think there's the one thing that we need to I guess clarify for anybody who's going to watch this later as well is that it's not a magic bullet. It's not like it's not a magic bullet and it's not a prerequisite. So when a seller thinks of using promoted listings or how to tweak promoted listings, there are those who go, it's a prerequisite to sell. It's not. We've already established that some items don't need promoting. If you are selling a signed pair of Jordan's first pair of basketball shoes, those don't need promoting. Even if they were, and because even if they were promoted, and promoted listings doesn't just mean higher ranking in search, which is also random depending on how many people are there. We'll talk about that in a sec. But it also means being placed on like Google ads or like on the bottom banners or similar items. Look, if I'm in the market for basketball shoes and I type in Jordans, if a $10,000 pair, I'm assuming that's how much they cost, of Jordan's first pair of shoes was promoted to me, I'm not the buyer for it anyways. I'm not gonna go, you know what? I came here planning to spend $200 on a pair of good basketball shoes because that's rough. 200 is a good pair already, but I'm just gonna throw 10 grand. It doesn't work that way. So because of that, you don't have to promote those items. It's item. So remember, this is item shopping versus general shopping. If it's item shopping items, they really don't have to be promoted. So that's the first thing. So the prerequisite perspective on promoted listings doesn't hold. Then the other one, which is magic pill, the whole like if I promote it, it leads to sales, versus if I don't promote it, it doesn't lead to sales. I'll show you. I'll read what it actually says on the promoted listings like FAQs. Literally says, some of the metrics to keep an eye on are your click-through rate, sales conversion rate, and average sold ad rate. Those will give you insight into the overall health of your promoted listing standard campaigns. But then it says, for example, you can also track listing level sales data from your campaign dashboard to better understand how specific items are performing. So essentially what it is when you look at promoted listings, you've got the flow of traffic, and then it'll tell you how each item is doing at the bottom. For most people, myself included, it's too much data to have to scrounge to see how an item is doing. If you're a general store person and you want to understand how your items are performing, promoted or organic, just create campaigns specific to categories. That way you can just sort by campaign and you don't have to go through the line by line of seeing how that pair of jeans did versus to another pair of jeans. Because that's just, for most people, that's too much. For most people, that leads to over analyzing, because it assumes that you know all the factors that influence that traffic, but you don't, because we've already established competition plays a big part and seasonality plays another big part into that performance. So it says here, for example, if your click-through rate unexpectedly drops, it can be a signal that you're receiving the same volume of impressions, which means eBay is showing the listing the same amount of times for that rate, but something has stopped buyers from clicking through to your listing pages. And I love how this is like literally the last sentence in this whole page on promoted listing standard. It goes, that would indicate that key buyer signals like price, postage, and seller rating may have changed and are having a negative impact on your click-through rate. Isn't that interesting? So essentially what they're saying is, this is not a magic bullet. Even if you do promoted listings, you kind of need the buyers to like you. So promoted listings does not forgive crappy listings. Promoted listings definitely does not forgive average listings. Promoted listings only increases your chances of a good listing selling faster. That's how I look at it. So if you find that you're promoting and you're not seeing the same spike in sales as you're used to, first thing literally is to go check your price relative to all your competitors. Second thing is to check whether there are any new competitors who are listing better quality items than you or doing better quality listings than you. Listing quality items, better quality listings. So they could be getting better items within your category, or they could be doing a better job of the listings of the items that you're selling. In which case, then take a few notes. Could be more photos, better photos, could be photos of details that you may not be covering in your, for example, right? When I first started listing toy cars, to the point about the Tonka before, I didn't realize people wanted like close-up shots of the hydraulics. Now I take close-up shots of the hydraulics because I noticed my competitors would take the shot of the item and then they'll go detail, 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 detail because of these important things. So so promoted listings, all it is really is better placement potentially. But even then, you still need to capture your buyer with your listing. If you can't capture your buyer with your listing, then it's wasted dollars. It's like putting an ad up for a brand in a billboard, but have a kid draw it. If a kid draws it, no one's going to care about it. It needs to capture you still. The marketing on the billboard still needs to have a narrative. It still needs to be, quick and sharp, make you think, all those things. So that's the first two things we do. It's not a prerequisite, but it's also not a magic bullet. Exactly, Wendy. Detailed title, description, all 80 characters. Everyone has their own way of doing things. There isn't a right or wrong way. It's up to each of us to decide what works best. Shouldn't be negative about it. True. More competitive price approach on non-promoted account. Dave, by the way, is a consulting background. So I think that context matters, right? The fact that Dave actually has a A/B test. A/B testing literally just means I've got two things that I'm testing side by side. I change one major factor to see if it really influences the outcome of both. Everyone get a drink. So with promoted listings as well, the other thing for the newer resellers in this chat is that you must always acknowledge that you're competing in search. You're not competing in category. You're not competing in, because you can compete. You can think that your competitors are the category, and therefore you might do research based on categories. But really, if you have a target buyer in mind and you list according to that target buyer, so if the target buyer wants to see particular angles, if they want shipping, multiple shipping options, if they want the assurance that your item will be shipped in a box instead of a satchel, there are ways for you to differentiate the item through the delivery and through the experience of the shopping. You compare your listing relative to competitors who may offer similar delivery. Then you would ask yourself, do I need to promote my listing relative to this competitor? And if you don't, then you don't have to promote it. But if you find that you're up against a lazy promoted listing seller, in which case, lazy, not in grumpy granny, I don't mean lazy, but you know what I mean. That whole, because I'm like that too. It's like just pick the minimum and go for the minimum. You could very easily just win by doing 5%. And you can tell lazy because you can tell it's across the board. Very few people will promote higher than minimum across the board. It's just counterintuitive. So when I think about like I did a promoted listings video at the very beginning of this channel when back in September. And the analogy I used was when you think about it in search, you've got concert halls and then you've got stadiums. Some categories and some searches are literally concert halls, in which case you can pay for VIP for the front row, but really front row, second row, third row, back and the last row, 4 rows to listen to an orchestra in a local concert hall makes no difference. So you would literally not promote because it's just 4 rows. But if you find yourself in a search that's like a stadium where the front row you literally can feel the singer and they can high five you, somewhere in the middle you can enjoy the music, You still feel like you're close, but the singer can still see you. And then the back few rows, literally, they don't really see the stage. The stage doesn't really see them, but they contribute just to the noise of the crowdedness of the place. If you understand what kind of searches your items are or categories are turning up, then that will inform you whether to promote at minimum or not. You would promote at minimum if everybody promotes at minimum in the concert hall scenario, but in which case then 1% extra might put you at the front, but it may not mean that you get more sales. But the point is that it's very easy to leapfrog everybody. In a stadium scenario, it's pretty much a spectrum. You're going to have people who will promote at 15%, at 20%, by the item, because that's the only way they stand out. If they do it across the category, it doesn't make a difference because it's just such a crowded place. I'm not sure if that helps. I hope it does, because when I gave that analogy at the beginning, people were like, yeah, that actually makes sense. Because there's this tendency to standardize everything on eBay, to go, my item isn't selling, and then end of story. Yeah, but how many competitors do you have? How big is your category? How big is the subcategory? How elastic is the pricing for that category? So if there's enough points of difference in a search, people don't look at the promoted listings thing. Like, for example, if you have 4 items listed, right, and the pricing is such that the first one is like $30, but the last one is $90, somebody looking at a screen at first instance isn't going to care, because they isn't going to like think to sort, because they can very quickly tell there's information here that already helps me to differentiate. So the first one they're going to click on isn't even going to be the first listing, because they can see very clearly the smallest number is the one in the middle. But if you're talking like 100 results, and the pricing looks like it's all blurred into like a string, then they're gonna go, this is too hard. Sort. You know what I mean? Like, either sort or click on the first one they see. That's, I think, is where promoted listing shines, where a buyer sees too much information and they have to decide whether they sort or just click the first one. Because if it's all gonna be the same anyways, I might as well click the first one and see where that leads. But then if the first one doesn't give them what they want, they're gonna go sort anyways. So promoted listings as a tool and as a window is actually very narrow. So I wouldn't stress too much about the percentage, about whether I should do it. I don't know. It really comes down to, does your competition do it? You should do it. And then at that point, ask yourself, do I notice my sales going up or down relative to me promoting more or less? And then if I turn it off, do my sales stop or not? Does that make sense? I know I'm kind of ranting on about this. It's a very diverse topic, because so many factors actually come into this. It's not just a case of pick the highest number and you'll win. If it was that simple, it would be good, but it's not. Or 59% Retroranger. What percentage of your sales are sent offers? Well, for me, I think, maybe 40. I should look into that, actually, because I clear offers every hour. So, and every hour I have anywhere from 17 to 100 sent offers. So that to me is a good indication of traffic already. Yay! Makes sense. Good. I thought I'd show you guys the difference between a niche store and a general store, because I've got niche stores and I also got general-ish stores. Here. So this is like this is privileged information. Nah. So if you look at so these two are like niche stores in the sense that they are like stores by like franchise. So therefore, I'm trying to get as many characters of that particular franchise. And then, so essentially I've got one. So the store at the top is just toy cars, which means that anybody wanting to buy toy cars, that's it, just toy cars. And then the bottom store is like franchise toys, which means that if I pick one franchise, I try and get all the characters so that I'm satisfying the completion of a particular collection. And you'll notice that promoted because of the search nature of the niche, promoted listings continues to suggest, because it's like, you know, someone wanting to buy a particular item within a niche generally keeps searching, right? They're the types that will save a search for a particular model of toy car or a particular character. And so then you see a lot of promoted listings traffic impressions. But then you'll notice that the click, in terms of click through, it's still mostly the organic, because promoted listings is suggested. People who want, to the point about item shopping, people who do item shopping search, then go click through. They are not going to click through as much just on suggestion. So that's the first thing to note from the two. It's the whole, eBay will promote like everybody else, but you don't have to feel like you're missing out on that conversion, because that item shopper is going to click through if they want or are interested in the particular item anyways. And then ta-da! In terms of conversion, and this is from a month. So like in terms of conversion, the organic sales is the thing that feeds me, not the promoted listing sale. So then the question for me is like, I really can do without the promoted listings, but because my competition has it, I still keep it. Conversely, when I look at the general store, right, lots of suggestions, because really it's like the items can fit a bunch of different criteria. So this is like collectibles and clothing. So for example, with collectibles, I'll have an action figure for, say, like a Venom action figure, but that also gets suggested if someone looks for like a Venom Funko Pop, a Venom T-shirt, a Venom mug. Just because the character is the common factor, promoted listings will then show that listing in a bunch of different searches, because it's like, hey, by the way, since you're gonna buy a Venom related thing, and you're looking for a Venom T-shirt, why not buy this Venom figurine as well? But then when you look at the click through, still organic wins. And then when you look at the sale, it's like, huh? You see what I mean? It's like promoted listing sales actually accounts for more than the organic sales. So then when I look at it, I go, if you have a niche store, you're really only promoting because of competition. You're not doing it for any other reason. But that's really the point of promoted listing. It's about how do you use it relative to your competition. And because it's an auction system, it's like, even if you bid 100% and the other person bids 100%, you both don't automatically get half, because other people may bid like 30%. So it's like, you're really just doing it because it's a prerequisite for you relative to your competition, and that's it. But it's not a prerequisite general, like at the top. And then when you look at generalist stores, you're doing it for exposure, but your listings still need to capture attention. Which is why whenever people ask me like, why do I do niche stores versus, and yeah, Fixie, I do pay multiple subscriptions. So essentially it's like, I think it's 60, 60, 25, 25, 25, 20, 25, 25. And then, yeah, so it's 2 lots of 60, 3 lots of 25, and then one of them is I still haven't paid yet, because it's like a really small dumping account. So when someone says to me like, why do I do the niche store versus the general store? It's because eBay as a tool doesn't really give me much magic bullets. It just gives me a way for me to showcase my ability to sell. I still need to capture the buyer. I still, eBay can promote listings, tell me to pay an extra how many percent. Like there's a co-coupon thing happening at the moment where it's like, pay us, I think it's 17%, but then you pay for 12, and I don't know what the numbers are. But essentially it's like, hey, have you considered a boost in your promotion? I'm like, well, I don't need it, because really my item, you already allow me to reach my buyer. That's the best part of eBay. The tool is just like extra. You already allow me to reach my buyer. When my buyer sees my listing is a good listing, and it captures the buyer, which is shown by, I have organic traffic because I am searched for. That's a testament to the item. And then And then when they get the item, they convert. When they click through, they convert. So that tells me, that the one who wants my item clicks through to see my item versus the one you're suggesting should see my item doesn't really click through to my item anyways, because they're general shopping versus item shopping. Hence the niche store versus general store. And then if I'm able to capture the buyer anyways, I don't really need the tool unless unless I have good competitors, which is a good thing to have, because good competition doesn't mean you don't make sales. It means that you have a reference point for you to make more sales. A good example could be if you both take exactly the same photos, you do exactly the same pricing, more shipping options, and in the description you say we ship everything in a box. You're gonna make more sales. You know what I mean? So like but the thing is that it's on you. I think that's really the takeaway from this whole promoted listings chat. The fact that it's a lot of it actually is on you, and that's super empowering. Promoted listings itself as a tool, it's just a tool. It literally is just a tool. So it doesn't really boost doesn't give you that slingshot the same way a markdown sale does, a no expiry date coupon does, a regular send offer, as we've talked about in this chat. A quality item. Like if I think about promoted listings, right? If let's say you're paying something like $500 a month in promoted listings fees, I dare you to take 3 months of promoted listings and go and update your camera, and then take really good photos. Die. Oh no, there is. Like the number of times that sellers don't appreciate that. I'm so sorry. The internet decided to drop for some reason. What was the last thing I said? If someone was to tell me what was the last thing I said. I don't even remember at what point it started freezing. Yep. Okay. So yeah, if you take a few months off, improve your camera. A lot of sellers don't appreciate that buyers that the photo literally is the buyer's way of knowing what the item feels like, what kind of item they get, the scale of the item. You really want your photos to shine, because the rest of the stuff is just price. The price is not that big of a variable if you think about it. The number of times good photos will give you the top dollar that you want over a price difference, over a lengthy description, over multiple shipping options. To me, upgrade the camera at the expense of your promoted listing dollars, and you'll see a huge difference already. For me, the biggest, my not negotiable upgrade every year is the phone. So this is a 14 Pro Max right here. This is a 13 Pro Max. Some days when we're taking photos, we literally will drain both phones' batteries in the same time just to batch up photos for listing. So and I understood, because I understood that, I got this phone literally just because of the Gold Coast trip for Retail Fest, because I'm like, yeah, I need a phone with a huge battery, the best camera I can find. so that when I'm doing content while I'm there and just getting my reps up to create better content to get over the nerves of recording things, I need to have a good tool. And so when I'm comparing tools in terms of eBay and selling, this tool makes a huge difference. Promoter listings tools, That being said, though, like I retook photos of my entire store a few years ago. Yep, yeah, exactly. Your the photos convey the flavor. I cannot stress that enough. Like the fact that you can just I forget which the Dr. Octopus one that I did at one point. The whole I'm trying to think of what's the best way to show this. Instagram? Do I go to Instagram and just copy it? Wait. I'll find it. I will find it. I will find it. This is the problem with having so many posts. You can't follow, you can't find things. Okay, let me see. Got that. And that. And then all right, talk amongst yourselves. I'm trying to do something to show you guys the difference a good photo makes. And I don't know how else to share it with you, so I'm going to do it this way. And I hope it comes through. And I'm pretty sure some of you guys have seen this before, but I'm gonna assume that some of you have only just started following the channel. So I'm not gonna assume that everybody has seen everything that I've put up. I'm just gonna add it to the chat. Okay, let's see, where are you? Gray carpet backdrop, full menu settings on iPhone camera give a true realistic color. Oh yeah, very true. With clothing, the number of times purple, mint green, my gosh, and especially with the depending on the background color as well, like some colors just look weird. Pink and purple, coral, ugh. Hey Sandra. Okay, so good photos versus average photos, right? This is what I mean. So I did this post a few months back, and literally my photos are on the left. What people normally take is on the right. This is the difference, right? If these are your thumbnails, you can pretty much see when even if you have promoted listings and that the one on the right is higher than the one on the left, you still click on the one on the left, because someone looking for an item goes, how do I know the item functions? How do I know all the tentacles stick to his back? How do I know that I can pose it the way that I want to? How do I know, like, how do I know that I'm going to be able to use the item the way I want to? And simply understanding that a buyer wants to pose it, wants to create something with emotion out of it, you just do it for them in the photos. And then they go, so yeah, kid you not, these two items were listed. Mine sold literally within 2 weeks, and then the other one was like still sitting there. And I think and that's the thing. A good phone pops. Make a good phone and balanced lighting does that. Like you notice, the sheen along the tentacles, where the various folds are. You pretty much can tell where all the smudges are. If I left a fingerprint on the figurine, you would have seen it if you zoomed in. But on the other one, it's like I can't tell if there are any marks. I can't tell if there are any scratches. I can't tell. Yeah. So fun fact, Wendy. one of the reasons why I do reselling is because it lets me play with the stuff. I've learned that I don't need to keep the stuff. I know some people have this, I want to keep it. It's really now I'm maybe that's an ADHD thing, a spectrum thing. I don't know. Whatever conditions people have told me that I have, like the fact that I don't feel the need to keep particular things. I just cycle through. I'm like, okay, I'm done with it, move it on. So I think with reselling, it's enough to spend 10 to 15 minutes playing with the item, sell it, move on. And then the variety, I think, satisfies me a lot more than trying to collect. Because I did try and collect for myself. Okay, I want a particular casting of car. I want a particular, figurine. At one point, I wanted every Spider-Man figurine I could find. But I get bored. I get bored. I run out of display space. And then I go, I want something new. So then we find ourselves back at reselling again, going, let's just flip the thing so that we get money back to then buy more of the things more of the new thing that we want. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yes, one more thing. Gary actually sent me this. And Gary, who is a friend of the show, he sells like collectible trading cards, and I think mostly collectible trading cards. And he did this test where he had no, what was it? Wait, pause. I think with the whole background thing, it really depends. If your items if your thumbnails don't stand out because of the white background, like I wanted to do a white background and I didn't do white background because I Night Angela. The reason I didn't do a white background was because I noticed that if I did the white background, all the items just look the same. And really it was about, well, the colors are the same, the items are the same. Is it a matter of whose lighting is the brightest for which one you click on? So then I figured a different background that wasn't an intrusive background, because some people will take an item on a dining table with like the kitchen blurred in the background. That's completely distracting. But just like a brick wall, a brown table, to me that was neutral enough, but it was also different. So that way it was a bit of an identifier as well. When people started looking for items, they'd be like, yeah, John's listed more things. Or even when they save their search and they scroll through their saved searches, that in that saved search on mobile, it looks like an Instagram feed of just photographs. Just the fact that your background will pop and then people will go, oh, what did John list today? Because I recognize that background. That to me was why I chose to do this background instead of a white background, because I found myself scrolling through everybody else's background. And I know some people will do like bright red backgrounds or bright blue backgrounds. Some will do watermarks in their pictures. All feels very messy. So I think it's definitely an art to figure out what's neutral but not distracting, but also unique enough that it acts as a bit of a brand for you. With the Liz, with the Google thing, right? My stuff actually turns up on Google, and when I do the listings quality report, it's fine. Like they don't actually rule out any of those listings either. So I think complete white background is of course the standard, but it feels like Google Ads actually can handle a bit of white, a bit of brown. So like my stuff shows up on promoted listings on Google as well. So it doesn't really, I don't think it's as strict as they make it out to be. But you can imagine if there was a panel on stage and someone goes, how white does the background need to be? And they tried to figure out exactly where the parameters of that AI was, that conversation would go on to like dinner. So I think that's why they just go white background. And if you guys happen to figure out a different way to do it, so be it. We just will make a rule out of it. With it's funny you say that, Michelle, because I had some people tell me that the brown was going to mess with the Google Ads, and I was like, I can't be. I don't want to get a white table. Something about white tables just feels very YMCA medical lab. I think I was doing that Scandi phase where I was like, I like that table color, and so then I just kept using it, and then I noticed that my listing started showing up on Google Ads as I was researching items that were not my items or items I was going to list. I would still see suggested ads, and I was like, hey, that's my listing, and so I went, oh, so it works. So that was literally how I found out. It wasn't like I did some sort of specific test. It just happened to see it outside of Google, outside of eBay. And like, oh, okay. The it's interesting with the mobile experience. You're right, Dave. Like the if you maximize all 24 photos, I have a theory in my head, right? And I think it's like I wonder if you do all 24 photos, if by the time a buyer gets to the 24th photo and it's not obvious and every photo provides information. I wonder if it builds up some sort of like reciprocity that the buyer then feels compelled to buy. Like, if someone says to you, "Hi, what's your name?" And you go, "My name is Michelle." And you say, "Well, hi, what's your name, John?" I say, "What's your name?" "Well, my name is John." And you say, "What do you do?" And I tell you everything about myself. And I go, What about yourself?" You feel the need to go, "Well, I do this, I do that, da, 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 da." There's just this natural reciprocity. So I feel like 24 photos, but each photo provides a new insight into the item. Could be a new angle, it could be a new, a functionality, it could be a zoom, like, not like a zoom in of a bigger photo, but like a zoom in of a key function. So something that toy cars have that some of you guys may not know is some toy cars, if you look through the back window, you'll see like a speaker design, or you'll see like a like a print of a like an embossing of a car sticker or something, like to make it look real. And if you do zoom ins of those things, it's like, that's actually quite detailed. That's my point. It's not just a zoom in for zoom in sake. It's an additional insight to the item that the buyer is going to buy. I do wonder if you do all 24, whether it actually closes the seal for you, just because of the fact that you've told them a lot about yourself. I think that's a human nature thing. And you'll notice I'm asking you guys to do things that are very human nature, very business principle. It's a promoted listings chat. We've talked about its role in it, but it's just a thing. It's not as big as people make it out to be, and it definitely isn't a point worth stressing over. 90% of the area, Michelle mentions this is actually really cool. So essentially, this chat is now a promoted listings photography chat. So Michelle, 90% of the area, so important. How many times do you see people taking photos where they don't use up all the space? Like just this one that I showed you guys. He could have done it in a much more concise way. He just kind of went, I don't know whether to bend or not bend. I don't know, like, you know what I mean? Like it's like you can't quite tell what he was trying to do. Um, and it almost feels like he didn't want to stand up the character properly. And this is like a character with a pretty wide base as well. And he's just leaning on the wall, which is why it's posed that way. So many people, they take photos, they don't use the 90% of the space. When Brian, my helper, when he takes photos, sometimes he goes a bit too far out, and we try and retake the photos so that every frame literally fills up the frame up to that 90%. So we're talking, if this is the square, we've only got this much space around like that. And the whole and take photos with the square mode already activated, because you don't want to leave the cropping to eBay, and you don't want to spend your time cropping the photo to fit the thumbnail, and you don't want eBay to make your rectangle photo smaller so that it fits into the square. The one thing I did want to talk about in this chat, because Michelle and Wendy, you both, I'm thankful that you're here, because this is Gary's situation, right? And I think you guys would have seen his post in the eBay Sellers Australia Facebook page as well, where he goes, he tried to he was noticing that his promoted listings fees were going up, but his sales were not going up accordingly. And so then he just turned off promoted listings, and he realized that every time he turned off promoted listings, the organic traffic would just increase anyways. And so, wondering if you two have had a similar experience where if you turn off promoted listings, your organic just kind of covers, and therefore your sales. He noticed like a 10% drop in sales, but he's just like, for a 10% drop in sales, if I send offers, if I do a markdown, if I send a coupon, and use my promoted listing dollars more specifically the way I want to, rather than like an across the board thing, then I can just not bother with promoted listings, because the organic traffic seems to be doing all right. What do you girls think? Because I've never turned off my promoted listing, so I can't comment on that. When you say it's increased, right? Do you mean, have you actually noticed it in the have your organic impressions increased, thereby leading to an increase in click-through, or is it a case where your organic impressions have stayed more or less the same, but the click-through has gone higher? Like what exactly is leading to the increase, do you reckon? Because I'm thinking same, because logically I'm thinking if your organic impressions increase to cover for the drop in promoted listings impressions, but your click-through rate remains the same, then it would make sense that your sales would also increase accordingly if your organic conversion is higher than your promoted conversion anyways. So it's like if let's say you used to get 200 promoted listings impressions and you lost that, but you got like 80, but you only used to convert 10 of the 200 versus you get 80 new organic impressions, but you generally convert 40 of them. So then that will lead to a 30 increase in sales because you lost the 10, but you get 40 new, therefore 30 net. That's kind of how I'm thinking it happens. Very, very true, Paul. And I think this is the point. Mel's store is also in a very competitive category where for almost every item she lists, there's generally like 5 to 10 equivalent items, whether in individuals or lots. And I know this because I tried selling books at one point and I just found it really annoying that I'd find a book and go, this book looks good. Oh, it's part of a bundle of 5. Crap, I can't be bothered finding the 5. And how did I know that? I look at the comps and be like, individual, lots. Lot of two of 5, 3 of 5, 4 of 5. So I think with her category, you pretty much promoted listings helps the buyer to have an easier time of picking where to start off first. Whereas if there is no promoted listings, then you just fall in and amongst all that rubbish, which is like people who think that they can just list 3 out of 5, Harry Potter books. Are there 5 Harry Potter books? And think that someone will just buy the 3, which is dumb, but they'll price the 3 as if they're pricing them individually, So yeah, I like the books category is definitely one where I feel promoted listings is almost necessary. But to that point about because competition does it, not because, and then also if you think about the sentiment within the reselling community of how there are many people who have this mentality of like eBay has started something, it's now a prerequisite. They assume it's a prerequisite. Like remember when the item specifics became a thing, and then there were this large portion of people who just kept asking, oh no, I can't complete the circle, and then eBay finally had to go, calm down, you only need 5. Then they're like, but which 5? So I think there's definitely like a prerequisite camp, and in bigger categories, more players, there are bound to be that prerequisite group of people who will just do 1% across the board. eBay says 2, now it's 2. eBay says 3, now it's 3%. So I think if you don't do promoted listings in those categories, you definitely do lose out. But then Mel's drop though was pretty severe, which is like, to like Gary, for example, he does collectible trading cards. So for him, it's like he goes, well, but my category is pretty crowded too. So it's interesting. Like this track record, if you're someone who buys collectible trading cards, is it because your buyers are usually quite regular as well, or they could also be resellers, because you're buying like boxes, right? Like boxes, cases, or individual packs. In which case, then if the delivery is consistent and they lead to repeat buyers, versus if you are a bookseller, and bearing in mind, Mel would source books based on what she knows sells well. So therefore, it's not like she will get regular buyers, but not to the same extent that I will get Hot Wheels regular buyers, or Gary gets regular card buyers. She'll still get regular buyers, but because her spread is also quite wide, just by nature of that, the promoted listings factor, yeah, it's funny. Like I do, but that drop was very severe. I remember watching the video thinking, is it that severe? So I think maybe if I turn mine off as well, I might not see that big of a drop. But the fact that competition does it will definitely lead to a drop. I think that's where we kind of land. I like the fact that this conversation, every time we talk about something, we more or less arrive at a place where it makes sense. We haven't quite gotten to a point where we're like, huh? So that's reassuring too. It's so promoted listings isn't as mysterious and like God works in mysterious ways kind of thing. Books are the most saturated category on eBay. I thought it was clothing, actually. But she also didn't list as much. That's a good point. Yeah. Promotions tied to categories. It will be hard to do well in jeans without promoting, for example. True. I don't even read books, man. Like, there's this bookshelf right here. Most of these books I've only read like portions that I thought were interesting. I just podcast and audiobook anyways. I struggle with actually sitting down and reading a book. Just catching up with the chat. My gosh. You guys are amazing. Oh, she had it on pause, right? But even then, right? I feel like there's this perception that eBay punishes you for turning things off. I don't think so. I feel like I feel like there's just too many factors, and it doesn't. And the biggest thing that people that like the panel members, Jason in particular, likes to say this all the time. It's like it doesn't serve eBay to punish you. eBay wants you to sell. Your listings have to be worth selling, though. And it comes down to that, like the tool doesn't really factor in. Like your eBay will want you to sell your item because they get paid for it. Is this the part where I say, now, children, no fighting, please, in the chat? And that's the thing. Like we all go through periods. We all go through seasons. Um, when thinking about doing this chat, and really the only reason with this is the topic is because I put out an Instagram post, and the only person who replied to that Instagram post was Matilda, and I love you, Matilda. And that topic was promoted listings, and here we are. I was actually quite afraid of doing this topic because oftentimes it can be a topic that where people really want to fixate on, like, but tell me what percentage though. And I'm really glad that we've arrived at this point where we've acknowledged that promoted listings is not this big thing. It's just a part of the process. But yeah, leading up to today, I've literally been like, all right, I'm going to prepare a slide. Haven't prepared a bloody slideshow in forever. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to do a slide of like traffic. I'm going to do like to get the impressions graph and help you guys to understand how it looks for a niche versus general store. I even like went and looked up the freaking FAQs for professional disclosing standards. It's like, all right, what's eBay's wording on the matter? Because really, I've understood how it works, and I think most of you have used it and understood how it works as well. And hopefully, whoever rewatches this live will realign their expectations on promoted listings and not give it so much weight that they feel like they have to. And I think it's partially eBay has I'm not going to say fault. They have a part to play in this because they do push it a lot, and they push it to the point where, like they'll say it increases visibility, which is true, except they don't help the buyers to understand. That's what this whole video is about. It doesn't help them to understand how it helps the buyer, because like just a simple, the simple split of, oh, thanks, Granny. Oh, not Granny. Michelle, thanks, Michelle. Like just the simple split of like doing, item shopper versus general shopper, that already immediately tells you if you're an item shopper seller, promoted listings probably won't help you as much as general item shopper but if you're item shopper seller, but you've got competition, then you need to promote because they are promoting it as well. eBay can do that, but they don't do that because it overcomplicates things for the seller. So most sellers, and they actually make more money if sellers just simplify it and go, I guess we have to do it. So I guess because they benefit from it being a prerequisite, They just don't say anything about it, which I get. As business people, we recognize when a business move is a business move. But yeah, like just the push for promoted listings sometimes it to as I mean even in the chat. Welcome back, Angela. When like even in this chat, like the fact that we've covered send offers, we've covered coupons, we've covered I think we covered markdowns as well. Just yeah, so just understanding how those tools work in that relationship between seller and buyer and the search, immediately you know whether to promote or not, what percentage. And I think for most of us who do promote, we don't even care about the percentage. We just go, I guess that's the minimum, and it's like the minimum to play. But it's not a prerequisite minimum to play. It's just they're doing it, so I'm gonna do it. But if they stop doing it, I'll probably stop doing it too. I mean, why pay the extra money, right? eBay is like the parent who likes to give us what we want in sales until for some reason it thinks we aren't behaving or another child is being better, that takes it away. I don't think it works that way, Grumpy Granny. But I can see what you mean. I do. It can feel, yeah, it can feel that way sometimes. I know, which is why I think as eBay sellers I cannot stress the save search thing enough. Save searches because it helps you to understand where you perform within the playing field that you are actually playing in. Like on the seller hub, you've got all the performance within the category and they'll tell you what category your items generally sit in. That stat to me is completely useless because it doesn't tell me anything about how my items are performing. It just tells me how I guess I am doing. But if you actually save searches and scroll through save searches every single day, for me that's literally what I do when I sit on the toilet. I'm just on my phone scrolling through the save searches to update myself on all the save searches that I'm interested in because I play in those spaces and I'm taking note. How many new listings do I see? What's the pricing like? How often are rare items turning up? Because that really informs me about my category. It informs me about how I should be pricing things. It informs me about the tolerances of my competitors. It tells me, when I see a price with a best offer, it tells me, okay, this person probably will go to this price. Sometimes I'll send them an offer just to see whether they take it. And if it automatically declines, I'm like, all right, I understand now. This person only has this tolerance. But you don't know all of that until you actually have a safe search to play with every single day. It's not as big of a task as you think. Every 10 minutes, every single day, just go through and it doesn't disappear. So for example, right, if you do it every single morning and you stop, the next morning you do it, you'll see all the listings from that last point when you stop watching, because you'll keep scrolling and go, yep, I've seen that one already. And just do that every day. And you learn so much about who's playing how in your search fields relative to all the category-based statistics and the impression-based stats. Like those impression graphs that I just showed you, I literally just pulled them today. I don't even look at them on a regular basis because I don't see the point. I already know that by virtue of being a niche store, my buyer will buy my items for X amount of reasons. That's my confidence. My confidence isn't because eBay exists and gives me a bunch of tools and data. The data just confirms that my hypothesis on why my buyer buys is correct. So therefore, if you do save searches and you understand how sellers are selling, how they're presenting items, and then if you find that there's a competitor who's actually selling items of a particular volume, and you go, that's respectable, and you scroll through their store, and you, as a buyer, you just put on the buyer hat and go, if I was the buyer, why would I buy from this person? And if you start to take notes in your head, it makes me feel a certain way. The photos inform me. The pricing is great. I feel confident. They don't make me feel like I'm stupid because they write a bunch of red inked disclaimers in the description. That is already that's the masterclass on selling on eBay. You don't need all these tools. You don't need all these data. Like there's so many videos that go through the performance tab and the research tab and the marketing tab and go, here's how you do this. I look for this data point, that data point. Like I don't give up. I really don't, because it still can be interpreted either way. I want to know how my buyer buys because that's the relationship. Once I know that, I'm done. I just build on that, and I've always been proven right. And the only time my sales have gone down is because somebody else also figured it out. In which case, good for them. I've now got a good competitor. The game then goes to level 2, which is If they are pricing a certain way, I'm underpricing them and moving volume. If they are promoting, I'm promoting plus extra. And that's really all it is. When you think about any big business in the real world, somebody sells a laptop plus a case. Next person goes laptop plus case plus iTunes voucher. If they move 3 more laptops than the competitor, it works at the cost of $50 iTunes voucher. You have washing machine plus dryer plus service plan, or washing machine plus dryer plus service plan plus free installation plus. You know what I'm trying to say? That's just business basics for you. So in short, don't stress about the tool. It's just a tool, something that you put into play if your competitor puts it into play, and you do it better. But it must all be built upon the foundation of a good quality listing. That's it. Jody. I think I'm all ranted out, unless you guys want to talk about anything else in particular. Let me know if these rants get a bit too much. I recognize that my voice can get a bit like there's a bit of a passion that comes through it, because I just want you guys to get it. Those of you that don't. and I don't want eBay to feel like this overwhelming thing for you guys, because it's not. It's really just there. You can focus so much on the stuff that you can control and the stuff that you can actually build upon. eBay is just a place for you to test it and see if it works. And so, and as a platform for you to see if it works, it's very good. I think about, like, I was just selling on Facebook Marketplace, and just the thought of having to delete every listing, the lack of data, the fact that you have to press more buttons to get to places compared to eBay. Like, as a tool, eBay doesn't actually have that much to play with. They give you stuff that you can play with, but really you don't have to play with it to that extent unless you really, really, really want to. You know what I mean? So whereas, and so that's how versatile the tool really is compared to like Facebook, which is like you have to press a bunch of things to get to places. Don't even stop me on Gumtree. Gumtree is just like, the whole site just feels like a dingy basement. Nah. Grumpy Granny, do you tell all the other grannies to sell on eBay as well? Like, do you go to this is gonna sound so stereotypical. Do you go to morning tea where you play bridge and then you tell all the grannies that they should start selling on eBay? Do you also feel like when you're socializing with all the grannies who don't do eBay, that you feel like they're unproductive in their retirement and they should consider doing eBay? Yeah, Michelle, I can't work for anybody either. I have too many ideas and I have too many things that I would want to change. I spot patterns too quickly. It just nah, I can't ignore things. The biggest thing that my wife wants me to work on is exercising restraint in social settings in what I say. Because yeah, so I office politics would totally mess with me. I would not get fired, but I probably would. I think it would be like this. I would either get along with people really, really well and be like, and we just, hit it off and do amazing things. Or it would just be like, this dude's too much. We don't really want to change. Dude, what the hell are you doing? You're messing with the way that we like doing work. So just because of that gamble, I think that's because of that gamble of like not knowing what workplace I'm going to end up with, can't work for anybody else. Just so that we have evidence of podcast stuff here. Hashtag death pal granny. So the disgruntled octopus and grumpy granny are doing the worst reseller podcast ever. And today the one I watched was the first episode. I think was on whether you have a death pal or not. Great discussion there actually. Um, I'm with Granny on this one. I like having a reserve. I like picking up stuff as I see them, and I also don't. I don't. I how do I put it? I like having quantity because you never know when you'll be able to rush it through the market. Like like I remember whenever I have competitors for a particular item. You've heard me say this just a few minutes ago. The moment someone competes with me and I feel like the item is of similar, like the listing is of similar quality, I immediately batch photograph all the items, all the units of that item that I have by condition, and I'm just listing them and undercutting price to get it out the door. And obviously it's all profitable, right? It's less profit, but it's that chance to get waves of volume through. So I never say no to an item that I know will sell for profit eventually, and let it sit in the death pile because I already have data on it. So like for example, if I have one Spider-Man figurine, right, that I know if I put it up for $99, I paid let's say I paid $10 for it at $99. I know in 6 months it'll sell for 99. And someone comes along and goes, "Here's I've got one. It's 79, right?" I'll then take I'll take photos of all the 10 that I have, put it up for 50 and just get it out the door. And then it will sell at my listing quality. And I'm happy for that to happen because to me it's like I hope for that $99 profit, but really I'll still keep picking it up because I've now got that stock and I now have an opportunity to move it because someone has given the market a reference point. And that's because in my categories pricing is quite elastic. Sometimes someone can, if an item doesn't turn up for several years, even $99 is a pretty good price because hey, it's there. But then if let's say if the item turns up once every 6 months to 12 months, then some buyers will be willing to wait, in which case then they've been waiting for something to turn up and maybe drop to 70. That $80 came in and then suddenly like there's a 50. You know what I mean? So to me, having that bullet, I think for me is having that bullet to fire and fire really, really quickly when somebody provides a benchmark. That's why I generally will buy multiples of the same thing. And eBay, and I think that's a credit to eBay. eBay is such a big platform that it never fails to surprise me how quickly a competitor surfaces. Because but people need comparison at the end of the day. There are very few things that are I feel like there are very few things that are so desirable that people will buy without comparison. Like even things that are of nostalgia, people still kind of go, "Duh, maybe I'll wait." They'll think, do I wait for something with better condition? Do I wait for something local to me? Do I wait for some, like it's very rare that someone will see an item and go, I don't care about the price, I'm buying it now. So yeah, I'm happy with that. I'm happy with comparison. I'm happy with competitors coming every so often. Obviously not too many competitors because then your prices will then go down because that's just basic economics. But competitors popping up every so often for specific items, great for moving volume. Vintage Duplo, my gosh, vintage Duplo is the best. Like I remember doing the math on Duplo and realizing that what was it you pay more per Duplo block than you pay per Lego block, and then the fact that they go up in value. Duplo is like super underrated. Duplo, because of the lack of variety, they people think that it's not worth much. But then you can buy a whole bulk load of Duplo and just sell like the individual characters, the in the special pieces like the roof tiles and the like the shelving, the Duplo sofa, the Duplo sink. Those things go for like $10 to $20 per thing because there's someone out there who feels like their Duplo house needs to have a sink. What's LPS? Michelle, I have Monster High dolls too, but I cannot be bothered sorting through them. Do you want them as a bulk lot, or do you want to list yours first, and then when yours sell, I'll get to mine because I can't. The hair matching the clothing to the dolls is okay, but dolls are like one of my children that are not my favorite children. Um, I find them pretty. I do. I find myself sorting through brats and staring at them a lot, which my wife finds kind of creepy. But it's the hair. I did it once. The whole boiling it you put them in a pot of hot water. You boil the hair, then you condition it, then you straighten it, and they look gorgeous by the end of it, like stunning. But just the effort, I'm like, oh. Ooh, Littlest Pet Shop. Yeah, Monster High dolls, right? The reason why I think they do so well is because if you try and find articulated dolls where the hands can. For those of you who don't know dolls, okay, this is what a Barbie looks like. Okay, this is what brats look like. So brats do this, but they have like the plastic can bend a bit more, right? They're not as stiff as Barbie. This is what Monster High can do. And just by that alone, and you can swap out like the wrists, and I think you can also swap out the arms. They're like little stud joints, and the legs can do that as well. You can pose them really really well, except for the fact that they look creepy because they're monster high dolls. So I think that's why they hold their value, because it gets the creativity going beyond just looking at them pretty. Watered down conditioner with spray bottle. I have to try that. I need to dress them up. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. It's fun. My it's funny with with toys with kids. Like I bought my kids Lego, but I essentially have accepted that I'm not going to get the money back. But my boy wants to do social media at some point, so I feel like he wants to do those, take a photo of a particular scene and then request like a caption this type theme on Instagram, and he's mucked around with the Splice app to do some videos as well. So when that happens, if he does have enough character personality to put something on social media, you guys all have to follow that page. And that will be how I get them. And that will be probably how we get the money back for the Lego, because he's not keeping them together. Kids will be kids. I think that's it. Like I can't micromanage it. And Jenny's told me off for it. He's like, don't tell him what to buy. Just let him buy whatever. And if it's silly and not worthwhile, so be it. He's a kid. I'm like, fine. And that's so hard when you're a toy seller as well, because you know good toys from crappy toys. And when your kid goes, I want a crappy toy, you're just like, no, have I taught you nothing? Have I modeled nothing for you? Just to keep it in and like, yes, go buy it. I have some lovely Littlest Pet Shop stuff I got to resell, but one of my granddaughters begs me every time she comes to visit, can I please not sell them? My little her in the wheel. Well, that is unless she pisses you off, isn't it, Grumpy Granny? I'd be curious to see what happens in the US when the new USPS ground shipping replaces first class and parcel post. Isn't from what I gather from the states, isn't it like because every state does it differently, you and then you've got like different operators doing different things, like because of all the layers and because you guys also have a lot more people than us, like isn't it a case where management screws it up. So therefore, whenever there's a change, it's just things just get messed up. Because in Australia, Australia Post does subcontract to like Star Trek, and I think it's just Star Trek, and it's like, but the management of it is quite lean. So in that sense, Australia, our national post service is still the best thing that and the most reliable thing. And then also whenever they've made changes, like it used to be when you apply for a claim for insurance, they would call you to get your number on the phone. Now they just send you a link to a form. You fill out the form and they just refund you. So yeah, I feel like in the States, it's from what I understand, anyways, it feels like it's just layers and people not really implementing through the layers. And then so whenever there's a change, you guys are like, oh crap. Sure, they have cheaper posting options for sure. And my friends in China tell me that they have even better options there. But I think it's the reliability, right? Like we compare, we compare all the couriers who are cheaper than Australia Post, but the fact that they haven't been able to do it well, we still end up doing Australia Post anyways. And so, and I think that there's something to be said about how the ones who are doing well, I think like Mail Plus, um, Opal, is that one? Like the premium guys are doing well because there's fat in the premium. It's like, fine, we'll charge more or equal to Australia Post, but we'll do it quicker and better, which goes to show that really we want what we pay for. And if you tell us we'll get it cheaper, but you can't deliver, then what's the point? Or I think it's not about can't deliver. They can, but then don't do it consistently. And it's that gamble of like, I just don't want to think about it. The 20 kilo boxes thing is interesting for Australia. I find with couriers, just knowing the routes, like knowing how an item goes from from where I am. So you're local to me. So my sister lives in Carrum Downs, and there's literally a freeway that connects me to her. So when we were in lockdown, I'd send her 20 kilo boxes to ship to photograph, she sent back to me, and it was only costing us I think $12 to $14 depending on the size of the box. So that was how we got stock photographs through COVID. I would get all this stock sent to me, I sent it to her, and then I've also got people sourcing for me in Queensland and Sydney and in Queensland and Sydney, and because of how direct the routes are, it would cost almost the same to send it from Sydney because of the directness of the route as for me to send to my sister. But then when I send the same box to Pakenham, because there is no freeway connecting us, it would go up to like $30 for that same box. So I think it's not to say, I think in the States, it feels like they are just a lot more connected. So that's why the costing can be a lot lower generally. But just I mean, Australia, right? Like I remember selling something to Calcalo, like far out. It costed me so much just because of when I think about it, I'm like, oh, would the courier be cheaper? Hell no, because it's even more indirect for the courier. So I think the directness of the route definitely plays a part. And I think that does make sense because the last thing we want is for us to go, why is it more expensive and not have a reason why? If it's simply directness of route, makes sense. So just a matter of truth. And I know that some resellers that I've met, they will boycott certain carriers because of the way they handle and process the claims of damaged shipments. Even if there's a direct route, they'll go, you know what, we're not going to use them anymore because if shit hits the fan too hard, so we're just going to go use someone else who is slightly more expensive, but at least we know that from A to B and post delivery, it's going to be pretty smooth. Jody, in the States, I think Old Ink will tell us about this. So they have like, I think now they have tracking for trading cards, which I think is the thing that they were doing with eBay. It's an eBay partnership, which is pretty cool. So yeah, it would be nice to have something specific for category. But I don't think, once again, Australia, a small country. We keep thinking we're a big country, but we're not. We don't have the density for it. We don't have the density for special postage for particular items. I feel, Jason Laws, if you're in the chat, you might tell us otherwise. But because he works for Australia Post. But yeah, I don't think we have that density for these kind of special partnerships to create systems to track them. I feel like the whole rigid item in a large letter thing is really it's tricky because the moment you give people more things to bend, they're gonna just bend it. So you're gonna have more underpaid postage. You're potentially gonna have more wear on the sorting systems that have to deal with the fact that something doesn't fit because someone decided, hey, I'm gonna just see how whether this thick thing can make it through, and yeah. So I don't think you want to tempt that. You just want to go meet books only. See, quantity. So now that Amazon is in Australia, I do wonder whether we will get those benefits in 10 years' time. But at the same time, I feel like you can only sell as much as the population grows. And the something about Australia doesn't it's not the same as the States. Like it just doesn't grow the same way. So it'll be very interesting because like we definitely don't build as quickly as Asian countries. We don't build as cheaply as other Western countries even. Like I've got friends who live in the States and they build quickly, they build cheaply. So the fact that we've got so many conditions and rules around the building and the cost and the fact that logistically getting materials to Australia is also not cheap. I feel like the population keeping up with all these, you know, what's the word? All these e-commerce platforms that can facilitate more selling. Time will tell, but I think it'll take a while. Love to see a YouTube on scaling up. At the moment, I'm starting, but finding it challenging. Scaling up is really something that the best thing I can tell you with scaling up is to listen to business podcasts and listen to stories of people actually scaling up. The one of my favorite podcasts is actually The Mentor with Mark Boris. He's the guy who owns Yellow Brick Road. Sorry, yes, Wizard Home Loan. So he started as a mortgage broker, built up this like mortgage brokering empire, and all the people he brings on are people who have started something and grown it. And you'll hear him like the conversation is very much around. I'll type it in the chat. So the mentor with Mark Boris. So essentially, he Australian guy. So he every time someone says we did this, we had this idea, he will then go versus other similar ideas. I get why you chose that idea, and then after that they will talk about how they grew their business, and then he'll be like, yeah, I see why you did that way instead of this other way because it was me, I would have done this other way instead. But the whole conversation essentially tells you all the options and why one option was picked over another, and that is the kind of conversation you want in your head when you think about do I do this first versus this other thing, and why I shouldn't do this other thing that someone's recommending because it doesn't really suit me. So that's the first thing. The second thing is when you're wanting to get advice from anybody, only get advice from people who let you tell them what you want to do. So whenever, so my wife has actually said to me, I feel like you can be a bit defensive sometimes when you don't take advice. And I say, no, 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 no. I take advice from people who understand what I'm doing. At least they've heard what the vision is. If they hear me want to do something in my business, but don't hear where the end goal is, and they start suggesting things to me, I generally tune them out because most people will never suggest things to you where you take a loss in the short term for the long term win. They will try and tell you, go get funding. Have you tried selling in this platform? Like a good example, right? If you're someone who can close deals at 80% conversion rate, and someone says to you, because you are a word of mouth referral type person. Let's say you do makeup for people, okay, and you only do word of mouth referral because you feel comfortable meeting people, getting to know them, and that allows you to close the deal whenever you have that first conversation. And someone finds out you do that, and the first thing they say is you should go to networking events. You should hand out your business card everywhere. That's not something that would logically make sense if your business model is that, if you're that kind of person. But they don't know how you operate. They don't know what kind of business you want to build. That's bad advice. Though it would be very stock standard textbook scaling advice. So that's the second thing. Always only take advice from people who understand where you want to go long term. Because then when they tell you to take a loss in the short term, your gut will also be like, yeah, you know what? I kind of don't want to do that right now, but at least I know that I don't want to do that, but I know that eventually I have to. So it's kind of like they're telling you the pain you need to go through. And then I think the third thing is really to find people who are not in your industry. I cannot stress that enough, because people who are not in your industry will, but they have, if they have built businesses, $300,000, $400,000 in revenue kind of thing, millions of dollars even, they will firstly tell you the things that make them weak. They will also tell you things that are only business related, because that's what you want. You want to scale your business. They don't know anything about your category. They don't care, but that's the point. What you sell is just a thing to help you make money. So that's the thing you have in. So the thing you have in common is business talk. And then what you'll find is you'll get a lot of really good business advice that is time tested, because whatever season you think you're in, they've already been through it. And then if they are going through it again, they'll be able to help you to explain why this comes in waves versus why it's only at the start. And I think that's the thing, understanding. It's like parenting. When you have kids, most of you guys, from what I'm gathering, have kids. It's the whole, like, when you have a newborn, people will say, oh, when you get married, people say, oh, look forward to having kids. It's the best thing ever. And then you have kids, and then you give birth to a baby, and then they go, he's like, why did you tell me this was going to be amazing? And they go, well, if we told you it was going to be crap and it was going to be painful and you're going to not be able to sleep for a few years, you wouldn't do it. And you're like, oh, damn it, got conned into this. But then eventually you come to realize, wait, kids are a beautiful thing. For them, they're a net positive for the most part. And then you start to understand why even parents with special needs kids actually look after their kids, because they go, despite the work, they are still net positive. And then the general posture is parents who abandon their kids are bad parents because they're abandoning the net positive, which makes the parent look really bad. And then you keep going. You get the idea. It's like a time-tested thing. And then you get to the teenage years, and then someone says, it's okay, it gets better, because once your teenagers will think you're an idiot until they become adults, and then they'll realize that you were right all along. But then you have to find yourself to forgive them and then love them again. And then that way you get access to the grandkids. And then you go, really? But we're having such fun now. They're going to hate me? And then sure enough, they hit 13 and puberty. And then it's like, my kids don't want to hang out with me. Have I done something wrong? So it's knowing, having, and it's not even about the kid, right? It's just about the fact that that's just parenting. So to the point of that being business, if you talk to people who are not in your industry but have experience building successful, consistent, resilient businesses, you'll get that map. They'll tell you things so that you take steps. And then after, they'll be like, yeah, if I told you differently, you wouldn't have done it. But now that you're here, here's the next step. And then they'll tell you like, oh, you need to just do this, don't ask questions, just do it, and you'll thank me later. I have people in my life who fulfill those roles. Jason's one of them. People who are ahead, who have made sacrifices, who have been rewarded and also hurt by their business decisions. And I've got others as well in other industries too. Those are people that I would, and for me, the additional layer is I also find people who can communicate with my wife, because it doesn't make sense for me to try and convince my wife about something and she doesn't believe me because she thinks I'm being selfish. I then go find somebody that my wife doesn't trust, who then convinces my wife, and she's just like, no, I don't trust the both of you. But I find that my accountant's another one of those people who, when I try and explain something to Jenny and I can't, I get him involved because he can explain it to her and she trusts him. And so in that sense, you get confidence. That's what you're after, Jody. It's how do I get confidence knowing I'm taking the right step after the next step after the next step? And that really comes down to confidence. And you get confidence by doing those three things. There's probably more. You guys can add it in the chat. But yeah, first one is good podcast, The Mentor with the Mark Boris. That's my go-to. Second one is, what's the second one? That's what the rants do. What was it? There's the getting advice. Oh, getting advice from people who will actually understand what you want to achieve in the long term, and then getting advice, finding people who are more experienced than you, not in your industry, so not resellers. So you're here. I'm giving you advice, right? We're all giving you advice, but there's also gold that you can get from people who are not resellers. Because the other thing people who are not in industry is they can't tell you to do all the bad stuff that people do in our industry. They won't tell you to cheat. They won't tell you all the hacks. It's the best way to filter out all the hacks, right? Like when you're watching YouTube and you're watching a video of somebody selling DVDs, books, games, whatever it might be, and you go, is it really that easy? Like if you want to filter all the hacks completely, different industry. That way you literally get all the stuff that builds the foundations of a business. and then builds the foundations for the next level, the next level, next level. That's literally what you want with the scaling up. And then the product is just the product. That's it. When I first started selling on eBay properly, I remembered my son wanted a particular toy, and I didn't even like the toy. And then but I'd always been flipping stuff as a hobby. And then so when she started buying it brand new, I went and bought it secondhand, and I told her, "Hey, I reckon I can flip this stuff and build the collection for free." What she didn't realize was back when I used to flip as a hobby before I met her, I would spend a lot of money on these things. Like I used to buy sneakers, and that's like pretty high dollar stuff. And so then I think the next 2 weeks I spent $800. She's like, "Whoa, this is nuts! You have to start selling." And so then I opened up my garage for one day and just did a garage sale, and I did $300 in one day, and the stuff barely moved. And then she just went, "So you did $300, you've spent 800, and there's still so much stuff here." And she just looked really confused, and I went, "That's profit." And then I said, "I reckon I can do more of this." So that's the scale up, right? And then she went, "All right, just don't go too crazy. $2,000, that's it." And then I spent $2,000 and kept flipping. By the 6-month mark, I had given up my garage space. She still had hers. There was stuff in my study. I had to walk over stuff just to get to my study table to do loan applications because I was a mortgage broker at the time. But I did 30 grand in sales and had spent 30 grand in stock. So I literally filled up a double garage by the time it was more or less a double garage. So the basement had stuff in it as well. And then she was like, "So, oh no, sorry. Before I went crazy, I said to her, I reckon I can replace your income before our daughter was born." And we were already pregnant at the time. This was like at the very beginning. And she kind of just laughed and thought I was joking. And then so by the end of that 6-month period where we did 30 grand and bought 30 grand, sold 30 grand of stock, the 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 sales on the month where she was born was 10K. And then Jenny goes, "I don't like the fact that you're packing orders, you're rushing from the hospital to go pack orders whilst I'm still in hospital after giving birth to a baby." And then it took her a year after that to actually kind of forgive me for doing that, because I was like, "Look, I didn't enjoy being in finance anymore. The Royal Commission was messing with me, and I just needed another business that I could be more me." And so I think that there are periods of transition where people just don't understand. Like I was lying to my parents, to my dad, to her, to try and just go, "Look, just trust me, it's gonna happen." Because like you just have to test to find out. And I think that's very hard to do. And I did a video of that actually in the channel. I'll link it up. Um, people, I think what I said was, people want, everybody in your life wants you to do better, because if you do better, they do better too. That if you're in a loving relationship, like a secure environment, that's it. If you've raised children together, you want to be together. So that's the premise. And assuming that's the premise, they need to know how to support you, but they just don't know how to support you at the start because they can't see where it's going, and neither can you. So that's fair. And I think being able to forgive people who love you but don't know how to support you at the start, because what happens then is, as you build up a body of work, they then go, "You know what, I think I can support it now." But if you hold a grudge because they didn't support you from the start, which, as we've already established, they don't know how to, and they don't really, you can't expect them to, because you don't know if it's going to work either, you'll find it very hard to let them support later on. So it's really a case of you knowing that you're going to do your best to make sure it's going to be okay. You're going to just allow yourself to, not be supported. They're going to yell and scream and complain and whatever. So be it. Because the fact is, you don't know what you're doing. They definitely don't know what you're doing. And eventually, when you finally know what you're doing and they can understand what you're doing, just let them in gracefully. And from that point on, you're pretty much sweet. So as nice as me and Jen appear to have it right now, 4 years later, it was a pretty rocky start at the start too. Pregnant, hormonal, giving birth, me running to go pack orders and come back the next day kind of thing. Like I was there for the birth. But like the moment, baby came out, went back home, packed orders, and I came back. So yeah, it's transition. But as the body of work grows, right? And that's the thing with scaling. If you scale knowing why something will sell, and you're trying to get data and continue to flesh out your category, that's why niche is important too. Because for me, if you have a niche store, you get data very quickly. If a generalist store, you can't even explain why something sells, because something may sell randomly. But if you sell the same item or category of item regularly, narrow enough, you'll see the waves. You'll see how often the a particular color goes. Is it 2 weeks, 3 weeks? You'll start sourcing more targeted as well. People who don't do your business cannot rely on random. So if you're doing random, even though it makes sense in your head, it's very hard for them to understand why, like how it works. If you come back with jeans one day, books another day, Legos the next day, your spouse isn't going to get it. But if every day you're coming back with jeans, in Mel's case, every day you come back with books. In Mel's case, we also understand partner just wasn't being supportive, full stop. So he was being a jerk. But if you have a loving spouse and they see the same thing coming every day, it starts to look like a business. You've got more reason to say it's a business. And eventually you come out of it because there's a period of unknown for both of you. So that's the reason you need to understand that. It's not that they don't want to be supportive. They just don't know how, and you can't expect them to be because they have no basis to be supportive. Yeah. So like in terms of space, buy bunk beds and stack the kids vertically. Use the spare room. Yeah, that's very true. Like we have 4 bedrooms in our house, and yeah, one is for us, and like 2, and like yeah, the kids currently share a room. But then again, they're also like 6 and 3, so they still can. In terms of space, like there came a point when I said I needed the second garage, and she looked at it and went, okay. Because we just needed it. And it was like, it wasn't like now you guys look at my garage, it's messy, but it looks more or less organized. It was not organized at that time when she gave up her car spot. At that time, it was still very much 80% of the garage was dumping ground. Inventory was just in several places that I knew where to find it. Like we're talking, I think at that time I remembered wanting to get to 1,000 total listings by the time baby was born. So 1,000 listings, like just one wall, because toys are quite small. Now we've got about 6,000 listings of just toys. So that's different altogether. And plus the other stuff that we haven't listed yet, the stuff that we're holding, the long tail stuff. So at that, like the fact that the body of work was still very messy, but at least there was a track record of sales. My accountant sat with us actually after that first 6 months of sales and did explain to her that he may have broken even cash flow wise, but all the money is in the stock, and because he didn't borrow money to buy stock, he has to build it up somehow, and that helped her to understand. So yeah, I think just having real conversations and having people who understand business, who can explain to your partner how it works, unless also your partner. But also, if for anyone else who's watching the chat, like if you have a partner who actually is in business and knows how to run a business, and he's noticing or she's noticing that you're not quite doing it right, listen to them, because they may be like, "Hey, this isn't. I think you're doing this the wrong way." That could be that can happen too. Like there have been periods of time where I bought too much stock, and Jenny goes, "Nah, I don't think you need that much." And there were times when she was buying stock and then getting sales, but spending all the sales money on stock and building all this stock. And then she was wondering why the cash flow wasn't growing because all the money is going back into stock. So, and then there were periods where she would go, I feel like I'm doing the same amount of sales as you. Why is it that I don't feel confident making changes to my store? And I said, it's because you're doing the same amount of dollar sales, but your items are usually, 5 times more expensive than mine. So therefore you have 5 times less data than me. So I've got way more reps than you, which is why I can make changes wholesale to my store, ditch categories altogether, subcategories, varieties of stuff, but you can't yet because you still feel you haven't had enough reps. So those conversations actually are very important because it helps you to you're feeding off each other, you're helping to help, you're really gaining a deeper understanding of the thing that you're doing. Creating systems, have a lounge left, my walls are covered in shelves. Research, keeping the house in control is important for others living in the house. Having inventory with SKUs and after listed kept in a very organized way to make it quick and easy to find. Yeah, like even like now I have to wait, Jody, does that answer your question? I know I talked a lot. Didn't mean to, but that hit a nerve what you just asked me, because I went through something similar. So I hope it helps. Save a lot of time. Even my garage now, the shelves are the shelves need reorganizing. So we need to we need to, and the rain isn't helping. And Matilda asked me to get containers to put stuff to like move stuff in and out. So I gotta use that potentially as an option too. But yeah, I've got stuff in my garage that essentially there's a dining table in the middle of my garage that was meant to be a sorting table that has become a dumping ground. And then we realized after all the shelves got moved in around that table and all have stock in them, so they're not like to move, that we don't like to dump stuff. We want to, whatever stuff we bring back, we just want to sort and photograph on that day or the next day anyway. So we don't really need a sorting table. Except now to get that table out of the garage, the easiest way might be just to saw it in half and just take it out, like take the limbs out and take the middle, saw it in half. The table we got for free anyways. The wonders of marketplace. But yeah. Do you mean rolling shelves like the stuff you find in libraries where you just kind of like ding, 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 like they're on rails? Is that what you're talking about? Aren't those expensive? Like the if that's what you're talking about, aren't those really expensive? Because we had them when we were when I was a mortgage broker, and they're really cool. But also they're quite space limited. Like you can't have stuff sticking outside the shelf. Whereas you know with like with Lego, you can still have it kind of sticking kind of half out because it's not going to fall out completely. Ah, wire racks and wheels. Cool, cool, cool. So they're a bit more lean then. I was thinking more like the ones you have in legal offices where you literally turn the dial to move, like turn the wheel. That's awesome. Jody, Michelle's making a very good point about like not buying any more until you get down. Usually a partner can tell the thing that you're doing that usually a partner can tell the thing that you like doing more than other stuff because they know you. You know, like you've got the sourcing, you've got the researching and sourcing. And then I split the two because researching is the tough. You're on your phone just scrolling for stuff and just enjoying learning about the category. I did that a lot. So my phone a lot just sourcing for things. Research. Then there's the sourcing of it, where you're going out and picking up stuff, right? Like if you're detouring everywhere to pick up things, you're taking the kids with you. It's taking up everyone else's time. And then you've got the sorting that takes up time and takes up space. Then you got the listing, and then you've also got the actual fulfillment, right? So you got those 5 steps. There will always be things that you enjoy doing more than others. You have to show that you're in control of being good at being your own boss. If your partner starts to notice that, hey, you don't look like you got this under control either, what they might be actually saying is there are some things you look like you enjoy doing more than others. You may seem to like doing shopping more and you're justifying the shopping because you think you can sell it, but you're not actually selling any of it. Versus you might enjoy just sorting, but then you're not actually listing anything. Or you might be really good at selling, but you're not sourcing enough. If it's not looking like a real business, they're gonna start to question how you're doing things. And so one of the things that you can do is to show them your logic for how things move. So when I bring back a big tub of toys, it's not intimidating to Jenny anymore because she understands the cream gets sold individually, the rest of the stuff gets combined into other tubs, and then eventually the tubs just get sold on marketplace for like $20 to $50, depending on how big the tubs are. So she understands that everything in that tub will be dealt with. I think that's the thing. If you bring back like just hauls of clothing or whatever it is that you sell, and you are not able to convey how it will be dealt with, you're gonna be questioned. That's just natural because people are gonna go like, I don't get it. Like, how are you gonna deal with this? And then the next thing is they're gonna assume things if you don't tell them. So Jenny used to assume that I would just dump stuff in the recycling bin, and then once I got a dumpster, she's like, all right, fine, there's a dumpster. So she'll just check the dumpster every so often. If it's empty or if it's half filled, she'll know that it's not going to go into the house. It just go straight to the dump. And yeah, so I think that then also helps them to, when they notice that stuff is piling up, they can at least ask you questions that are specific to your plan. So if a partner says, can you just move that stuff? It's taking all this space. Makes you feel offended, makes you feel like they're not giving you space, makes them feel like they don't trust you, makes them look impatient, right? But if they say, is that stuff going to get listed, or is that stuff going to get dumped? Is that going to be combined into a bulk load, or is that going to be actually be photographed? Like that then is a conversation you can have where you go, yes, I'm going to photograph that pile is meant to be photographed. Would you like to help me? And you in that common language provides an opportunity for an invitation to maybe do something together. That could be cool. So I love sorting listing meh. Oh, so many different situations. It's amazing. I love this, Paul. Like eBay, just so good for family. Um, yeah, it's just so good for family. I cannot say just how awesome it is that we get to be close to family, we get to do things with family, and family gets to see what we do. So cool. I sort photo and list the same types of items at the same time. Books one day, DVDs one day, toys one day, instead of mix and match, saves time from listing. Yeah, I do the same thing too. Um, because you're selling similar, you're photographing the same way, you're probably storing things similarly as well. For me with toys, it's the difference is stuff I don't have to post versus stuff I do have to post. So dolls and action figures one day, and then because the pace is so different, like you guys will see me do with the cars, it's just like snap, 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 shove. Um, if I then have to stop and do a figurine, I don't want to. It's very bad. It's like I don't want to stop. So being in flow is so important. The um and I think that sometimes when resellers start, they don't recognize that inertia of like not being in flow, because they want to make the money. They picked up a bolo, they want to list the bolo. So then they'll do the shoes, and then they'll do the laptop, and then they'll do the toys by order of highest value. And I understand that. By the end of the day, it's all gonna, if you have a system to do it, it's all going to be done eventually anyways. So you're better off just being in flow, so you get more of the eventually work done. Good point. Good point. Do you ever take anything to the auction house? I have one close near to me, big items that I can't sell on eBay. I have attempted with mixed results. Um, I don't pick up anything that needs to go to an auction house. I think that's probably it. Like, until I can find a category of things where the dollar value is much higher for the space it takes, I don't see my and it's not competitive. I think that's it. Like, I could sell TVs, very competitive. Vintage audio. I'm quite intrigued by, because it's not as competitive. You do get good dollar for the space that it takes. The problem with that is I don't know vintage audio well enough. So, and I don't see myself ever really wanting to know more about it. Like, guitars probably would be one of the things that I would get back into if I did have the space for it, because I remember, because yeah, guitars, there's a lot of gap in guitars because good guitars don't come out very often, but good guitars get sold for cheap just as often. So in that sense, it's quite easy to get a good deal on a good guitar, great guitar even. Um, Leave it sitting around for a few months, put it back out again, and make like an easy $1,000. So that's one category that I do want to get back into. What else? Yeah, just a dumpster really, and then moving stuff in bulk as well. Like the op shops don't take my stuff anymore because they now call me to go pick up stuff that I like rather than me go and dump with them because they can't move the stuff that I give them anyways because it's just too often. Um, the Yeah, I've never tried with auction houses because also it's the time. I think like there are some collectible places here where you buy a stall, it's locked up, and then like antique markets, and then people pay by the stall, and then they take their cut and then they pay you whatever at the end of it. Like just the thought of having to move my items to another location just to sell it feels like a pain because eBay can sell everything anyway. So therefore, I think it comes down to choosing not to pick up stuff that needs to go elsewhere. And if I do pick up stuff that has stuff that needs to go elsewhere, generally just gets binned if it doesn't get moved in the marketplace. So a good example would be with toys, you get lots of track. So like Hot Wheels track, giant car parks and stuff. Most of the stuff doesn't get sold, I just bin it. And people say it's a waste, but I don't care because it takes up space. It's not going to move for the dollar value of space that it should take because the smaller items will make a lot more money and they cycle a lot faster. So that's kind of how I approach it. Yeah. What kind of items do you pick up that needs to go to an auction house? Like, are you buying antique silverware from a farm and then they're making you take the tractor as well? Like what how big are we talking that you must take it? Because otherwise, aren't you just choosing to buy it and knowing that it's not going to move after a few reps of buying the same thing? Hey Janelle, hello. With a drink? Are you drinking tonight? I need to top this up actually. I think it's whiskey time. Hmm. Oh, this smells sweet. Love it. Ooh. Terapeak. Ah, gotcha. Mercury sign. They can't ship. Show and tell. Jody, I think show and tell is tricky because a lot of resellers don't like revealing what they sell, which is completely understandable because I think that everyone knows this. You can be helpful without telling anybody what you sell. To the point about how you can get advice from people in different industries than yourself. Um, not, I feel with Australians as well. Like there isn't a culture of sharing what you sell as much as in other places. Not sure what it is. I don't understand it either. But I know that if you niche down, I know that if you niche down enough, you can get to a point where you know that competition will affect your sales, and then you don't want to tell people about it. And that's completely understandable. That's a great business decision. It's not because you're selfish and you don't want to help. So I very helpful, but there are things that I will not tell you just because I want that space to myself. I found that space, I want it to myself. I'll tell you guys about other stuff. Like, I'll tell you guys about stuff that's, fairly general in nature, but I'm not gonna tell you the stuff that like is that I found and I'm gonna keep. That's just good business. So it's kind of like how if you think about Apple and Samsung making phones, you've got that they've all got specific things that they've developed on that they will never share, but the basic functionality of a phone, how it works, how a camera ties in, whatever, like that stuff, everybody knows. So I think show and tell is going to be tricky, and especially show and tell is going to be, and show and tell without that stuff is generally not very helpful either. Show and tell without that stuff is just, yeah, cool. That category has resale value, but the wow factor to get into that category won't be there in that show and tell segment. So yeah, but it's a good idea though. So I think part of this live and also all the other listing lives that I do with the creating of community, I've essentially just disregarded items because I find that items are not a topic of focus and people are not going to reciprocate on that. But people will always reciprocate on systems, how to use tools, how to grow a business, how to communicate with partners, how to scale up, how to, like all the stuff that helps the business. Because if all that stuff is good, the items generally will sell, and it shifts the focus away from the item. Because the fact is, the item isn't the star of your business. Your business is the star of your business. And when people buy, and you'll realize this actually with franchises, when people buy into a franchise, it's not about the item, it's about how the franchise is run. If it's just about the item, you wouldn't pay the kind of fee that you pay to a franchise to buy into a franchise. So yeah, that's, you will find as you scale up and you grow, that's where the real gold is. It's not about the items. You can give somebody a bolo and they have a shitty way of running their business. The bolo won't go anywhere and they won't be able to replicate that success either. Yeah. Everybody go watch Grumpy Granny's therapy video. Yeah. Janelle, can you please elaborate what you mean it didn't used to be it's not as good as it used to be? Like, how has it gotten less good? Because I still find it quite useful. I still quite enjoy it. So I don't know how it was better. Like, make me miss something. I get it. Yeah, with systems setting up shelves, things like that, it's quite personal too. Don't disregard your ergonomics. I think that's the big thing. Like, I'm sitting on a metal stool at the moment, right? It's not the most ergonomic thing, but what I've noticed is I slouch a lot more if I've got a backrest. Also, I'm sitting on the metal stool because my legs can press against the metal when I feel nervous on lives. That's right. I get nervous at these things. It may seem like I'm a natural, but I'm not. My hands are sweaty right now. So, so like you need to think about why you pick a thing that suits you, because really you're working in that space, not anybody else. So, yeah, that's and actually having that conversation with other people based on what you sell, people that you trust clearly, then they might be able to give you ideas as to how you search for things. Even your partner, hubby might actually know, hey, you're actually a visual person. Why are you making everything a numerical system? You like seeing things, just make it visual. Make sure your bags are transparent so you know what's in them. Make sure your tags are facing out so that you register visually the label instead of reading barcodes. Yeah, just things like that. Wait, they used to name the business? Damn. All right. One of the things that I want, one of the things that I want for wait, I'm gonna make that a thing first. So one of the things that I want for Terapic is to be able to click on all the listings, because they've given you 2 years worth of data. They have now given you 2 years of data in the orders page as well. But I want to be able to click on the listing because I want to be able to see the actual photos they use. Because we've talked about how important photos are before you got on, Janelle. Like how even if someone uses 12 photos with 24 photos, it makes a big difference. Or even if they just put a marker to tell, like, 12 photos in the bottom corner of the photo thumbnail, but they don't. And I just want to be able to click on the listing so I can see the photos. I don't care about the pricing. I don't care about I want to see why it's sold. And I can't do that if nothing is within the last 90 days. I just get the text and the pricing. In which case, if I already sell it as a seasoned person, the pricing I more or less know, the titling I more or less know already. So yeah, in that regard, I get why it's useless. Um, Terapic for me is useful because as a niche seller, I know the waves of how pricing goes up and down. So that's kind of helpful for me. Yeah, I really would like to click on the listing, but I'm not sure if they will make that data available or not, or if they've already archived everything. Ooh, that last segment with the whiskey, it's kind of doing its thing here and it's not going down. That's oh, whew. I love to do a YouTube and would like to know how you all started. There's a lot of stories here, Jody. So many stories. My gosh, I reckon we go for hours. Hey, I was just telling the guys at the start of the chat. I picked up a die cast like a like a heavy dump truck that was made in Singapore, Shinsei dump truck for $1 at the op shop, and it goes for $200 on eBay. Looking forward to getting that listed. Yeah, I love Facebook groups for research. I'm not sure where else you do research at, Michelle, for rare items, but I also find with a lot of the Facebook groups, it really comes down to culture. Like there's some groups where they will just not tell you that something is rare. They will regularly downplay what you've got and then message you later to see if you actually have it, or they'll try and downplay you so that they can move other items instead. Like it can be fairly cutthroat in some of these groups because you don't know why somebody is. You almost have to hang around in a few of these groups to kind of know who is who and who says what, and kind of weed out all the trolls and block them out so that when you post something, the comments you get are more or less filtered already. Yeah. You're welcome, Jody. I think I'm going to make it a thing. And I mentioned at the start of this video, listing and live. To me, it just felt like we're back at uni again. Like we're studying, and you've got a chat thing happening in the background where you're just typing a messenger to somebody. So yeah, reselling gets pretty lonely. So I'm thinking of doing listing lives probably every other day. Being very mindful that other people do go live as well. So like Chris Furlong does Wednesday at 8:30 p.m., which you guys should go check out because he's raising money for Backpacks for Kids in Victoria. And for those of you guys who don't know what Backpacks for Kids Vic is, essentially when kids get into foster care and they need to be removed very quickly from their homes because of danger or health situations, emergencies, just kids needing to be placed in care, they need stuff. So these backpacks are that stuff, like toothbrush, maybe a soft toy, a coloring book, whatever it might be, that will make a kid feel like they've got like the kid had packed something to go to the new place to give them something to hang on to. That's what backpacks really is. So that's what Chris does, and he's raising money for them going forward, and he's got plans to work with them ongoing as well. So yeah, so do check in on his live. He's raffling off, I think, Pokemon cards and other stuff. Even if you're not into Pokemon cards, just support it, donate to the raffle, help him to get to his goal. I think it's 10K that he's going to go for this time. I think so. Yeah. So obviously trying to do this listing lives to give you guys company, something to, like, some of you guys have told me you replay this stuff during the day, which is fantastic, and I'm very thankful that I've been able to add this value. Just as an idea, just came up as an idea, did it, and then you guys seem to like it, so just keep doing it. It helps me too. It helps me to actually stay here to do listing as opposed to like move from here to go to the bed, move from here to go to the couch, right? Like I'm here, I'm actually doing this. And then I'm always surprised by how long I've been sitting on this stool once it's all done. At some point, I think we need to do like a 10-hour listing live challenge where we give ourselves like a shot of whatever at the end of the 10 hours. But yeah, like a 6 o'clock to 4 a.m. maybe, just to see how much listing we can actually do. Hey, Bolos. Yeah, we talked about that a little bit, Janelle. Like, I think I may have taken the hype out of it because I've made everybody kind of reassess their business models within the searches to figure out whether they actually need promoted listings even at all to compete within the various searches that their items show up in. Um, but yeah, the additional, like the fact that you have to turn off your normal to do this instead, as opposed to do this on top of, and the fact that I don't like the fact that eBay lets you do this on top of whatever you're currently doing with promoted listings anyway. So in which case they do like a double dip. I don't like that. I feel like if you opt into this campaign, they really should just automatically turn off the others. But I also know why they don't do it, because it's meant to be an individualized thing per listing, per category, per niche, per campaign. So yeah, why not just give us a refund on the current? But then I get why they're not gonna. It doesn't suit them either. Yeah, it's interesting. This promoted listing share. I'm so sorry. I don't know what vinyls. I don't know how to actually operate a vinyl, and I've never actually heard one. That's how young I am. Please don't crucify me for this. He is a top guy. And one thing about Chris Furlong that I do admire is he tries to start all the things he wants to at the same time and grow it together, which means that sometimes you can feel like he's doing all these things and they're not all growing very quickly. But he has a long-term plan, and I like that. Like, he knows where everything can go, and where it all kind of comes together. Whereas for me, it's like resell first. People tell me to do YouTube. Nah, I don't want to. I'm gonna focus on reselling. Then only it's like, do YouTube. All right, fine, I'll do YouTube. And then I realized, crap, I should have done it sooner. So yeah, there's this whole, like, with him, he does try and do a lot, but he also measures everything quite meticulously. So I do respect that. Like, if I don't have that kind of, I'm very much I feel like he's very much like a jack of all trades who will eventually become a master of all those trades. Whereas for me, it's like I want to master one thing at a time. So like basketball is a good example for me. Like there are people who learn basketball and they do everything in a balanced manner. For me, off ball shooter. I run around, I catch the ball catch the ball on the turn, shoot. If I get it in, I get it in. So I'm pretty much like, if I'm hitting shots, the team loves me. If I'm not hitting shots, they just bench me. So I've been told, Grumpy Granny. The I've been told that the emotions of songs come through better on vinyl than digital, and I would love to hear that. That being said, though, I have heard music through, or what are they called? Tube amps? Are they called tube amps? The ones you have to like warm up before you hear them. And I will say the warmth of the sound was I'm pretty much like Corinne Bailey Ray as well. Like it was like the kind of jazzy, yeah, could definitely put me to sleep. Like hmm, warm, warm. We contribute 12%, eBay contributes the rest. If the seller is at eBay Plus, they get 17% off, and if they aren't, they get a 15% off sale. Interesting. So are you gonna do it, Janelle? Are you gonna show us if it works? I feel like they're talking about record vinyls, right? Or are they talking about pop vinyls? I'm pretty sure it's record vinyls. Very timely too, Michelle. Who's actually here's a good one. Who's actually preparing for Christmas already? Um, I I'm definitely looking forward to Christmas this year because I need the data on Christmas. I feel like I'm not willing to accept the state of sales as it is right now until I see what Christmas this year is like, because it still feels like we haven't had a clean like non-COVID Christmas yet. And last Christmas was like COVID-ish Christmas, so I'm very curious to know what Christmas is actually going to be like this year. Um, yeah, possibly doing coupon. Haven't done very much like that in the last few years. Their offers used to be better, more even split. However, if I do, I will be taking off my promo listings that I'm currently doing. Yeah, that makes sense. Um, I'm also actually quite looking forward to all the posts about people who do it and be like, oh, I didn't see any sales. Oh, eBay took double the fees because they forgot to take off the old promoted listings. Or people will be like, oh, no, eBay was supposed to give me preference for doing their current campaign. I feel like there's this whole conspiracy thing about how like if eBay, to the point about eBay being a parent, if eBay tells you to do something, you don't do something, then eBay's gonna punish you. Like with every push, there's always a bit of that pushback. It's funny, isn't it? Like that July, we're having Christmas laybys in July already. I remember it starting around like that August, September period. Hmm. Oh, here's a bit of a fun one. So you'll probably notice the goatee is gone, but the mustache is staying. So do you reckon keep it or not? I'm thinking of like growing like a thick kind of like one that kind of just stops up to like there. Keep. We have one vote for keep. Damn it, Paul! Go closer. Should we just end this chat now? I feel like we've done the promoter listings. We've talked about a lot of different things, and just turn it into like a listing live thing. Then I can get some listing done too. Do I have permission to turn this one off and then turn it back on as a listing live? Because that way that whoever watches this live again, then they won't be like watching the bulk of what we talked before and then having to like blend on. And I've been told that the 5-hour duration is intimidating for some people. So but I find like putting chapters has been helpful. So people have been still rewatching stuff, which is encouraging. Cool. All right. I'm gonna end this and then turn it back on again for listing live. Thanks for joining in. Great conversation and very happy how it turned out. I know it's helpful for you guys because the chat has been buzzing since we started. So this is awesome. Love you guys. See you in a bit.